My name is Fatou Kamara. I'm a broadcast journalist and founder of the Fatou Network, where it's almost 2 a.m. Eastern. All I wanted to do was to go upstairs, take this week off, take a shower, and go to sleep. But no, I'm sitting right here at almost 2 a.m. doing a video on the arrest of a Gambian. Very unfortunate situation. I never thought this would happen again in my country. The reason why I thought this would never happen is because the president and some of the people in the government were the very ones that we all fought with to bring about sanity into that country. So I thought that they would know better. But unfortunately, it looks like we're crawling back to the past. Well, I'm talking about the arrest of Madi Jobarteh. Madi was arrested after he spoke at a protest, and he's been charged and is expected to report to the police station on Monday. And here's the script of Madi's interview that I would like to read to you. But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Jabbate, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. These were the exact words of Madi Jobarteh. Inasmuch as I would not support any Gambian who violates the laws of the country, I would also not sit by and watch the state violate the rights of Gambian citizens. I therefore would like to call on the government to drop all charges against Madi Jobarteh and to also say that I am Madi.
My name is Pirjo Andersson and I live in Sweden. Many of you know me by my Muslim name Aisha Jallow, and I am a columnist at the Standard newspaper. I stand in solidarity with my role model and best friend Madi Jobarteh. I stand by him by saying the same words that Madi said in his interview with the press. But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Jabbate, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there has been no justice for that. So all of these constitute the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. Madi, my dearest friend, I stand by you by saying, I am Madi.
Hello, my name is Jabbate Kamara and I'm here to do the I Am Madi Challenge. I Am Madi Challenge is a civil disobedience movement that has been encouraged by civil society, members of the civil society, for everybody to come out, to shoot a video, to read out a statement that Madi Jobarteh has given in his interview while protesting for Black Lives Matters that got him into trouble with the authorities. We're doing this to show that freedom of expression, freedom of opinion cannot be criminalized, and that we are all Madi in this, and if Madi can be arrested, therefore anyone who is reading out this statement, this is a challenge to the authorities to arrest all of us alongside Madi Jobarteh. So I am Madi, but it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of Black lives being taken by the state, under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student, Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ismail Asise, and I'm taking part in the I Am Madi Challenge. Madi Jobarteh was charged for sharing his opinion on the state of affairs in the Gambia. These are his exact words that led to his arrest and subsequently being charged. I quote, "But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of Black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student, Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of these constitute the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. These are the exact words that Madi uttered that led to his arrest and subsequently being charged. Thank you.
But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of Black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by anti-crime unit. Until now, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitute the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin.
But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans, in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of Black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin.
These were the words of Madi Jobarteh before he got arrested. But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of Black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and the right now on the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been any justice and accountability. We recall the names of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student, Keba Seka, who was killed by the security forces. Remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit and later died. Until today, there's no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same stories like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. These were Madi Jobarteh's words before he got arrested.
In solidarity with Madi Jobarteh, Gambia government, I am Madi Jobarteh. What Madi said is nothing but the truth. Police brutality must stop in the Gambia. Stop harassing innocent people who fought against dictatorship 22 years. You can't cage Madi Jobarteh. You can't.
But it has to stop. The taking of all the lives of Gambians, of Africans, in the Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black life being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under this current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student, Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there's no justice for that. So for all this constitute the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. I am Madi Jobarteh.
As a concerned citizen, I stand in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh, who was arrested for saying these exact words. But it has to stop. The taking of the lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has been no justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student, Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there's no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. We stand in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh.
Hey, I am Musaba, commonly known as the Watchman. I am taking part in the I Am Madi Challenge. Here are the words Madi used for which he has been arrested by the state. It goes, but it has to stop. The taking of black lives of Gambians, of Africans, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this very country, for instances of black lives being taken by the state under the previous regime and under the current regime now. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been any justice or accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, of Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the name or the case of the UTG student, Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there has been no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story of the case of George Floyd, of the case of Breonna Taylor, and of the case of Trayvon Martin. It has to stop.
Hello Gambia government, hello fellow citizens. I am standing in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh, and I am going to read Madi's statement word for word before he was called in for questioning by the Gambia Police forces. But it has to stop. The taking of the lives of Gambians, of Africans in the Gambia, in Africa and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in the Gambia itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remembered the case of the UTG student, Jabbate, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitute the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. Gambia government, what Madi was trying to say is police brutality and injustice anywhere in the world is wrong and should not be tolerated. The Gambia has decided slogan is still alive and in play. Gambians are saying no to police brutality. Gambians are saying no to intimidation. Gambians are saying no to bogus charges. Gambians are saying no to police brutality. Gambia government, let Madi go. Madi Jobarteh has every right as a Gambian citizen to speak up against injustice, speak up against police brutality, speak up against corruption, speak up against intimidation. Gambia government, let Madi go. Thank you.
My name is Musa Jeng, and I'm in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh. Mr. President, for 22 years, all of us, including you, myself, a lot of Gambians, and Madi Jobarteh as well, we fought to bring an end to brutality, unnecessary arrest, and bring an end to the man that was behind the brutality, Yahya Jammeh. Jammeh is gone, but the very culture that was created still lingers. Whether it was the killing of Haruna Jatta in Kanilai, whether it's the killing of Jabbate or Usman Dabo, and these are cases. Justice is yet to be delivered. And when Madi Jobarteh took it upon himself to remind the security forces, Mr. President, that led to his own arrest. Mr. President, that's not why you were elected. That was not the change that we were looking for. Please, let's stop the arrest of Madi Jobarteh and let's all create and aspire for the new Gambia why you were elected into office. That culture still lingers. And now is the time to bring an end. Thank you.
Hi, I am Maimuna. I stand here in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh and accepted the I Am Madi Challenge for justice and truth as a concerned citizen. Here it reads: the taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in the Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state. Under the former regime and right now under the current regime, we have instances of police brutality which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin.
Blessed friends, family, concerned citizens, human rights defenders and political activists and all you others. It's a bit worrying. I'm quite worried, seeing the recent happenings in the Gambian political sphere. We have on several occasions before seen how people who have expressed their opinion against the government or on certain issues are called in for questioning, have been detained or arrested on the mere fact that they are trying to keep the government accountable either to their promises or to certain happenings, incidents, and they have been using the same laws as the dictator Yahya Jammeh imposed on us to keep the opposition down and to punish and intimidate people. So during the Black Lives Matter, one of our human rights defenders in the Gambia, Madi Jobarteh, expressed his opinion on the deaths of some individuals in the Gambia, and wanted to keep the government accountable, which is obviously the right thing to do. And a couple of days later, he was called for questioning by the security forces, the police, and he was later on also arrested and charged with false publication and false broadcasting. So I am joining this campaign not only for Madi Jobarteh, of course it's for Madi Jobarteh as well, but it is also for the freedom of speech. This is first and foremost to ensure the freedom of speech in the country, the freedom of opinion, the freedom of, being able to live and guaranteed one's constitutional rights and human rights. So therefore, I will read this campaign, and I hope many of you will join this campaign where we all together read the script of the interview that Madi Jobarteh gave on this Black Lives Matter protest. And this is what he said, and this is what he got arrested for. But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans, in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state, under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has been no justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there's no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin, etc. So this is what Madi Jobarteh got called in for questioning. This is what led to the charges of false publication and false broadcasting. Can you imagine? I mean, this is a concerned citizen who expresses his opinion on black lives, Gambian lives being taken of different reasons. But there has not been investigation. I mean, Haruna Jatta was shot in the beginning sometime in 2017. We are in 2020, and there has still not been a proper investigation, what we know of. No one is held accountable. And on several occasions, we have seen the same thing, where not only the deaths, but we have had people who have been arrested for different reasons, who we know oppose the government on certain issues, or who are trying to keep the government accountable. And we really, really, really have to take up this fight now, because tomorrow it might be too late. Today it is Madi Jobarteh. Tomorrow it might be you or me. I stand with Madi Jobarteh. I am Madi Jobarteh.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Modu Krubali. It has been a while since I did a Facebook Live. I wanted to come on today and join the campaign for I am Madi Jobarteh. And it's a very important campaign because it is something that bothers a lot of us, something that is continuing to occur in the country, and something we really want stopped. And the script reads, the taking of the lives of Gambians and of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have, for instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the names of Haruna Jada, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by the security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. And until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or Tyrone Martin. It remains a fact that we fought for 22 years against a dictatorship, and it seems like the same creature is creeping its head back. The choice this time is clear. We can't say we haven't seen this creature coming. We can't say it never happened to us. But we will be told that Gambia is the only country that let it happen again. Gambians have a choice. The choice is to challenge our state to stop the brutality that is happening in our country. Madi Jobarteh has not done anything wrong, like many other innocent citizens, like the Alaji Souls, like the Yanks Davos. The state continues to attack our people, and many of us have chosen to not speak this time. Like before, we always look the other way, and we're starting the same habits. I've decided to join this campaign because I don't want to sit here 10 years from now and ask myself what happened. How did this happen again? See, folks, this is our country. And as much as many of us don't want to accept the fact that we have to get out and fight this government, if we don't do it, it is our lives. It's a matter of life and death. We have worked so hard, millions and billions of dollars coming into that country. To this date, we haven't seen anything, no single improvement. The life of the average Gambian is worse today than it was 22 years ago. So the choice is very clear now. What is happening to Madi? We've seen it happen, and gradually it's coming closer to us. The next time someone else goes to the Gambia, the same thing is going to happen to you. We keep getting quiet, they will get to us individually. So this is why I have decided to join this fight, to stand up with Madi Jobarteh, and I've reached out to Madi and many of the other people. See, folks, many of us have lived our lives. Many of us have been lucky to be parents. We've been lucky to be grandparents. If it ends today, we have nothing to regret. Somebody has to do it for our state. Somebody has to do it for our country. That somebody has to be us. We need to stop looking somewhere else. It is not pretty. It is very tiring to have to do this all over again. But of all the people, just to stand up and just say what's wrong, what has not been taken care of. All these commissions, all these inquiries, nothing, absolutely zilch. It is time for Gambians to get up and say enough is enough to Barrow and his regime. This is a government that we all fought for. They have not only disappointed us, but now they're attacking us. If we have to regroup, we might need to do that. But what is happening to Madi, if we don't stop it, it's going to happen to every single Gambian. And if you don't do something, you're next. Thank you very much. It is late over here, it's 1 o'clock. I still wanted to do this, and happy 4th of July to each and every one of you. Good night.
Hello everyone. good day, wherever you may be. Well, I'm here to add my voice to the Madi Jobarteh Challenge. And I don't have the script. I'm probably not going to read that. But I just want to, add my voice and reflect a little bit upon how we got here. Dealing with Madi's case 3 years after people, Gambians rising up, putting their lives on the line to change course from the days of brutality, dictatorship, disappearances, false accusations, false charges, false imprisonments, exile of Gambians, to a Gambia of prosperity, respect for rule of law, freedom of expression, freedom of movement, freedom of association without fear. That's what we did 3 years ago. And fast forward, we are here today. A brother, Madi Jobarteh, who was instrumental in disseminating information at that time, was very instrumental in, ensuring this change actually happened. And today we are here. He's a victim of that same government he helped put in place to foster in this new hope for Gambia. Unfortunately, he is a victim of asking questions about some of the killings that happened at the hand of the police in light of the Black Lives Matter movement that's happening, taking center stage in the global arena these days. He asked questions about our own Gambians who fell victim to police brutality in our own country, own Black Africans. The Haruna Jatas, the Sekas, the Dabo that got beaten at the PIU, and I'll also add on the Faraba Banta protesters that were also murdered, 3 of them I think. So he came out to demand or to ask the government, what has come out of these cases, and he's now in Islam, asked to go in for questioning, and now he's charged with some very bogus charges, very reminiscent of where we came from. Now the challenge is, are we going to stand by and watch our country getting dragged again into the gutter? That is what we should ask ourselves. Are we going to turn another eye and say, this is not our problem, it's just Madi, and it's Madi, not me? Because that's the biggest mistake we can make again. This is not about Madi. This is about all of us. We failed this this test. It can be anybody, anyone, from the taxi drivers to the fishmonger, to the minister, to the civil society leaders, to the youth leaders. It doesn't matter. Everybody is a potential target if we fail this task. So let's all stand up and demand our government to drop these bogus charges and let freedom take hold in the Gambia. Let freedom of expression take hold. Let democracy take hold. Let accountability take hold. We cannot afford to go back to the old ways of doing things. We just cannot afford it. We are way too behind in the world's developmental scale. We cannot turn back. And it starts now. Let's stand up. Let's fight together. Let's demand our government to do the right thing and let people speak up. We need these plural voices. We cannot all be singing the same kumbaya, same tune. We need plurality.
Though I'm speaking from afar, I 110% stand with Madi Jobarteh. He is one of the few people on the ground in the Gambia who are standing up for people's democratic rights. And so what is happening to him is definitely something that everybody should be vigilant about and everybody should be challenging. So I stand with Madi Jobarteh.
Hello, my name is Aji and I would like to join the challenge to stand in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh. And the script reads, "But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under this current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall on the names of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of a UTG student, Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all this constitutes the same story like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin."
Hi everyone, my name is Lamin Sedikan. I'm here to accept the challenge going around social media. The challenge for the script from Madi's statement that led to his arrest. Here it goes. But it has to stop. The taking of the lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime, right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta example in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes to the same story like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. Now here is my piece of advice to the security members of the Gambia. I believe, you all learning from what is going on in TRRC. We don't want another TRRC in Gambia. So therefore, I will urge each and every one of you to not let no politician use you as a tool. Because at the end of the day, it's all going to be on you.
Hello Gambia. My name is Famara Fofana. I am here today to stand in solidarity with Mr. Madi Jobarteh, a Gambian and a human rights activist. I'm also here today to stand in solidarity with Gambia civil society organizations and every other Gambian in their quest, pursuit, and determination to fight tyranny. I'm here to partake in I Am Mr. Madi Challenge. Mr. Jabbate made a statement in the demonstration Black Lives Matters. And I'm going to read the exact words of Mr. Jabbate. I am Madi, but it has to stop. The taking of the lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world
has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Osman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of these constitutes the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. Gambia, I thank you all. Gambia, it's time for we to stand together. Thank you very much.
I am Madi, but it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there's no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. Freedom of speech.
But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the names of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was shot by the security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of these constitute the same story, like the case of George Floyd, of the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. Never again. We mean never again. Thank you all.
Good day to you all. I am here to do the I Am Madi Challenge, which I think every Gambian, whether you're in the Gambia or abroad, should do as a sign of defiance against state's overreach. So I'm going to read the script now, word for word. Here it goes. But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced it in this country. Many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has been no justice and accountability. We recall the names of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So, all of these constitute the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. I am Madi Jobarteh.
Hello everyone, I am making this video in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh, but it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been any justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jada, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student, Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there's no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same stories like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. It has to stop. So to the government, I am appealing for you to drop the flimsy charges you guys have filed on Madi Jobarteh. Madi's statements are factual. There's nothing false about it. So please, I appeal to you to drop the charges. And I'll take it a little bit further. As long as there's no security reforms, nothing will change. For example, we still have the likes of Golgimbub in the system, someone who was caught red-handed lying in uniform, and he's still serving. And in lying, instead of saying, I did, he would say, I do. So these are the people that we have serving and being promoted. It has to stop, and there needs to be security reforms. Madi Jobarteh should be set free, and Gambians have fought for this right to express themselves, and we are not going back. And for me, you can email me my charges, or you can send it to me via WhatsApp. I'll be waiting. Thank you very much. I stand in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening from the Gambia. My name is Palamin Mani. I do also want to join in a campaign for Madi Jobarteh. But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime, and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jada, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student, Keba Seka, who was killed by the security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this continues the same story, like the case of George Floyd, the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. I am Madi Jobarteh.
Hello, my name is Aziz Jan, and I live in Sweden. I'm a Gambian. This is about the challenge for the release of Madi Jobarteh and for the illegal arrest and charges of Madi Jobarteh. This is what Madi Jobarteh said, and I'm here saying the same thing, so let the police come and arrest me too. But it has to stop. The taking of the lives of Gambians, of Africans, in the Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality of which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jada, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student, Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice. So all this constitute the same story like the cases of George Floyd, or the cases of Breonna Taylor, or the cases of Trayvon Martin. This has to stop. And my name is Aziz Jai, and I am endorsing this message. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mr. Wali. As a Gambian citizen, obviously living overseas in the United Kingdom, I've been closely following developments in my country of birth, the Gambia. With the new political dispensation, I expected the government to act in a way that citizens' trust would not be diluted in any way, shape, or form. But unfortunately, recent developments, specifically about the arrest of a friend, a brother, a colleague, and a renowned human rights activist, Mr. Madi Jobarteh, has left me in doubt that the kind of government or the kind of governance and the kind of country that we all fought for seems disappearing in our own eyes, and we are not getting the same. I stand in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh, and I seriously condemn his arrest. I see it as a travesty of justice and an abuse to his fundamental human rights, specifically his freedom of expression. So I'm going to repeat Mr. Madi Jobarteh's statement as delivered on that fateful Saturday on the BLM protest. But it has to stop. The taking of the lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Sheka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitute the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. And I will also add Mamadou Lamin Cissé on this list. Thank you.
This is Pasamba Jau, and I join my fellow comrades in the I Am Madi campaign. Madi Jobarteh is a comrade, but he is the ultimate human rights defender, one of the most consistent and persistent activists that you will find today, not only in the Gambia but in the world. One who fights for everybody's fundamental human and constitutional rights, irrespective of your political affiliation or beliefs. Somebody had suggested that he is the conscience of Gambia's newfound democracy, and I said yes, he is, because Madi stands for what is right, irrespective of how inconvenient it might sound to others. His arrest for merely exercising a democratic right, one that is enshrined in our 1997 Constitution, Section 25, in the Banjul Charter, which is the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, Article 9, and Article 19 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's an affront to everything that is democratic and everything that is human rights. And people must not look at it in isolation, because today is Madi Jobarteh, tomorrow it will be somebody else. Madi may be the most prominent among those that have been questioned by the police for simply uttering a statement, and we must ensure that his would be the very last. When we fought for an unfettered democracy, unfettered respect for fundamental human and constitutional rights. And these tactics that are being used by the police and the security forces in our country were supposed to be buried 6 feet deep with Yahya Jammeh's rule. And in standing in solidarity with Madi, I will read the statement that got him arrested. Quote, "But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in the Gambia, in Africa and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kaninglai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Brian Atelo, or the case of Trayvon Martin, unquote. Any honest Gambian, honest individual, whether in government or not, would agree with the statements that have been said here by Madi. Because as far as we know, nobody has produced yet a report of investigation on the death of Haruna Jatta. What happened to the death of Usman Dabo? What about Mr. Seka? You see, a government that purports to be democratic will not be too sensitive to criticisms. Because arresting Madi, as I see it, is nothing but intimidation tactics being used by President Barrow and his government to silence dissent. But what is important for the president and his government to note is that Gambians will never allow that country to return to its dark days of dictatorship and tyranny. I am Madi Jobarteh.
Good day, everyone. My name is Frederick Tandeng. I'm a journalist, and I'm doing this video in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh. What happened to Madi is indeed very unfortunate, because in 2016, all Gambians decided that the bad laws enacted by Yahya Jammeh to silence them, for Gambians not to express their disagreement or their disapproval as regards the way the country is run by the government. What we have noticed is that these laws that we fought against are now being used by President Adama Barrow against Gambians, like Madi Jobarteh, who did everything for Adama Barrow to be here. It's indeed very unfortunate, very regrettable, because what Madi said is the general feeling of Gambians. Citizens have been killed in this country by security forces or while interacting with security forces. And as we speak, absolutely nothing has come out of the investigations that were said to be launched to get to the bottom of those cases. So Gambians generally feel like nothing is being done by the government or by the police to ensure that we come to the truth as regards the causes of the death of these people. Who did what? Who knew what? And why did it happen? Because their sense of people knowing this is for it not to happen anymore, not to happen again. So what Madi said is genuine. It's correct. Why would anybody arrest Madi and charge him falsely about broadcasting? Madi did not broadcast anything. If the government wants to be coherent, Madi did not broadcast anything. He's expressed an opinion and a media broadcast. So arrest both of them. But we will not do that because it's not proper. It's not correct. So the whole thing is a bogus game aimed at silencing Gambians so that we don't tell the government that we disagree with you anymore. And we know that the trend is very bad. The trend and the way this government is ruling the country is bad. If you silence Madi, you are sending a signal to Gambians not to say anything anymore whatsoever, in as much as they know that something wrong is being done by the government. But this is not going to happen anymore. It is going to stop. We went into exile for 11 years, and we are not moving away anymore. Our age has gone. So whatsoever has to be done, or whatsoever has to be done for this country is here in the Gambia. So don't make any mistake. And to you, Yankuba Sonko, Minister of Interior, you should amend yourself. History has written that under your mantra as Inspector General of Police, your men arrested Solo Sandeng, handed him over to NIA, and Solo was maltreated to death. As a Minister of Interior, you should ensure, if I were you, I would die for any police officer not to abuse a Gambian. This has to stop. Amend yourself. Prove your kids, your grandson, your granddaughter, and to every Gambian that you are a good person. To you people sending your money to what is called the National Security Sector Reform, Gambians are watching. And we want you to tell us if your money, you, European Union, and whoever is a donor in this National Security Sector Reform, is your money being used to train Gambian police to abuse Gambian citizens? If that is the case, you will be held responsible in the eyes of history. So this has to stop. To you, President Anababoro, Gambians are not afraid. Nobody is going to fear. Whether it's you or the overzealous police officers who think that when they do this, people will be afraid of them or they will get promoted. Nobody is afraid. This Gambia is for everybody. Put a honorable haftan in your body. The haftan of honor, the haftan of dignity, the haftan of fairness, the haftan of true justice. Gambia belongs to everybody. So this has to stop. Stop harassing people, stop beating journalists, arresting journalists. This month of June, past June alone, 3 journalists. It's too much. So freedom of opinion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, Gambians will fight to the core, to death for it. Don't believe that, people going to your office following the charges and whatsoever is, a done deal. No. You don't need all that. Do your job and ask Gambians to judge you fairly. On election day, they will decide. If they don't feel like it's not you, no problem. You do something else. So this was my message. And I hope that on Monday, Madi will get out of Kanifing police station with all those charges dropped against him. And that from there on, no Gambian will be harassed, no Gambian will be beaten, no Gambian will be arrested, and no Gambian will be questioned as regards whatsoever opinion he or she has expressed in a gathering or wheresoever. Gambia is better than this. Thank you.
But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has been no justice or accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, who was shot in Kanilai. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of the Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Trayvon Martin. I am Madi Jobarteh, and this has to stop.
Yeah, stop. Police brutality, state oppression has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality
for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by the security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. Thank you.
But it has to stop. The taking of the lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia and in Africa and around the world needs to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there had not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there has not been justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story as that of George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or Trayvon Martin.
Hello, my name is Bankamani and I am Madi Jobarteh. Well, I'm here to solidarity with Madi because the charges that have been brought against him are so ridiculous, it's not even funny. These are exactly the kinds of laws that we thought, or we believed, that when Jammeh is gone, they will literally be taken out of all our books because they don't align with democratic principles, they don't align with our values, and they don't align with our aspirations as a people. So the whole idea that these laws will still be in the books and used against innocent citizens, I think this is just so disturbing, it's not even funny. But here we are, and Madi has been charged. So for that being the case, we will all say exactly what he said, repeat his words verbatim, and give the government a chance to arrest all of us and charge us, since that's the route it has decided to go. If Barrow has forgotten where we came from, well, we will remind him of it, or at least we'll remind him of where he's about to take us. So here we go. I'm going to repeat the words, and we'll go from there. This is what Madi said. But it has to stop. The taking of the lives of Gambians, of Africans, in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state, under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there is not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. Here we go, unquote. So I've repeated exactly what Madi said, and just to remind the Gambia government that these are so benign in every form, shape, and fashion. These words. And the rights of every citizen are enshrined in all these words right there. But so if they decide this is the route that they want to go, to take those rights away from us, well, here we go. Thank you very much.
It has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in the Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state, under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by the security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of these constitute the same story like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin.
I join my fellow citizens in calling on the police to drop the charges against Madi and try to work with civil society and engage more into dialogues than what is currently happening. The only way we can build and sustain our newfound democracy is to engage in more of a dialogue. And I think the country belongs to all of us, and I think both the police or both the security forces or government and citizens and civil society want the same thing, and that is what is best for our country. And it is important, and you know what currently happens, it's a clear cut, and that teaches us lessons that we need to learn. And this is far more important, especially with regards to the new constitution that has already been tabled in Parliament, and we're looking forward for it to be ratified and sent for referendum. And it becomes very important that Gambians go out in numbers and vote for the new constitution, so that we can do away with the old constitution, which has a lot of bad laws in it. And I think that's the only way that we can get rid of some of these laws. And I am a firm believer of freedom of speech, but freedom of speech also needs to come with responsibilities, and all of us needs to engage in standing up for what is right. It doesn't matter who the person is, it doesn't matter where he or she comes from, but what is far more important is let's speak up when it is necessary. Let's speak up at the right time. When we do these things and then we do it collectively, I think we will win over. And the only way we can change some of these bad laws that exist in our constitution is to engage our National Assembly members, it's to engage government, it's to engage policymakers. And we have an opportunity now that we are presented with a new constitution. I think what is more important is for every Gambian to know that what we want cannot all be captured in that constitution. So you may get something that you want and within the constitution, and also you may see something that you don't want within the constitution. But what is far more important is for all of us to go out there and vote for this constitution and have a new beginning. And I hope the police will engage civil society for them to dialogue. And a clear case, and I think the police missed an opportunity when the Serakunda Market riot came up. Killer Ace, Banky Gray Johnson, Flex Dan, Lamin C, and this guy Babu Jao, try to engage the police. And I think it's important we bring out this in public. We met the IG, discussions were held, and I think young people presented a proposal for the police and the young people to engage in community engagements, so that they can go out there and then talk to the community, so that they can understand the police are not their enemies, but the police also understands what the rights of citizens are. And once that is done, I think it would have lessened the tension that exists, number one. Number two, it could have given both parties the opportunity to understand what the role of each other is. So I think the case of Madi is a clear opportunity for us to have a new beginning, and I hope we take the opportunity and engage the police, engage more into our dialogues, and go into communities and with police and sensitize people for people to understand what democracy is all about, what freedom of speech is all about. And I know it's going to take time for the whole police or the whole security apparatus to change in mentality, but it's a gradual process, and once the will is there, I think we can do it collectively. And I hope this is a lesson for both the police and us as citizens to learn that the best way we can build and sustain our democracy is to engage more in dialogues than being confrontational.
Salam everyone, my name is Red Sam and I am Madi. The reason why I am Madi is because I stood for my people when they needed me the most. I fought dictatorship and I'm still keeping my government on check, accountable. These are things that elites and governments don't like. I am Madi because I post and talk about everything that is wrong in this country. I talk about corruption. I talk about draconian laws. And I talk about the abuse and torture of our people. Whether it's sexual abuse, whether it's the torture in our police stations and other anti-crime. I'm going to say this because I am Madi.
Hello, good evening. I have decided to take part in the I Am Madi Challenge. Unfortunately, I don't have the speech to hand, so I'm just going to have to wing it, I'm afraid. So my apologies in advance. As far as I'm concerned, everyone has a right to hold their opinion and to express them freely without government's interference whatsoever. That being said, we Gambia have just emerged from a dictatorship. It was a very costly one, where a lot of lives, countless lives actually, blood, sweat and tears was lost. And that's actually what paved the way to this new dispensation. It's been a costly one, like I said earlier, and we refuse to slide back to those dark throes of dictatorship. What Madi, a human rights activist, was simply doing, he was drawing parallels on how black lives have been cheapened and relegated to nothing really across the globe. He was comparing the cases of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd and Trayvon Martin with three cases, with three people actually, that we have lost under the new dispensation. They've all been lost due to police brutality. No one, as far as we're aware, have been held accountable for these deaths. No one in uniform, certainly. These people are Haruna Jata, Usman Sise, and Keba Seka. That is exactly what Madi Jobarteh was talking about in his interview. He had every right to express it, and that right certainly should not be denied him or taken away from him. Like I said, we refuse to go back to those days. Those days are over, and the new dispensation needs to realize that. And if they don't, it's high time. I've got two pleas to make in this video. One is actually for our National Assembly members, and this is as a collective. Please consider repealing the Public Order Act as well as the False Media Publication Act. These two acts have no reason to exist in a democracy. All they do is, all they are, therefore, are to stifle people's movements, people's freedom to associate, freedom of association, as well as freedom of expression. So they certainly shouldn't exist in a democracy, as far as I'm concerned. The other plea is to the government, and this is just me humbly asking you all to basically drop the frivolous charges against Madi and dismiss it and let him go. It's a waste of his time, of him having to report back and forth, disrupting his day, and there is just no really reason to it other than, like I said, just to stifle his right to proffer an opinion, which is an informed one actually, for that matter. Like I said, what the state should be doing is refuting refuting actually the allegations he made by showing publicly how who's been charged with these deaths. There's been nothing in the papers as far as we're aware. So as far as we're concerned, there hasn't actually been anyone held accountable for these 3 deaths. And that's literally what this man was expressing an opinion, which he's entitled to. Thank you very much for your time.
Wow, assalamu alaikum. Mbokay comme niñ ko xamé challenge bi ñuy wax I am Madi dem nekk di daw ci social media bi mom la bëgga bokka man tamit dégëral suma kàddu pour wax ne Madi Jobarteh nit ñi ñëpp Gambie bi fa nga ànda yow di wax ne pour duñ mus di nanguwaat fii ci réewi Gambie nit ñuy foxar ñekk lu nga xam ne nii moo nekk seen axa ak yelleef si wax seen xelaat wax sa xelaat rek nga def si lu nga xam ne nii police yi ñoo ko waroon a tontu wuñ ko police yi ñoo waroon a indi leeral indi wuñ si leeral ba nga laajte ko mun a xari leen ñu bugg a indi naka sudut noonu ñu ngi lay wax ne nag yow Madi yow lañ àndal tey yow lañ àndal ëllëg freedom of expression nit ki daf ko war a am wax lu nga xam ne moom la xelaat gannaaw nekkul di xar xerta benn sarta te gis nañ ne Madi si sa wax boobu xertuloo benn sarta lu nga wax yëpp digga la d'accord nañ see yow ànd see yow di wax nguur gi ne amuñ dara luñ war a def lu mooy diggatoo wokkol ak ñooñu nga xam ne ñooy civil society organisation bi suñ bëggee Gambie mu jëm kanam ñaata yoon nguur gaa ngi wax lu nga xam ne defuñ ko su fekkee ne kon loolu la kay ñoom ñoo xarta sarta yooyu noonu nga xam ne nii wax nga loo defut ñaata yoon ñu ngi dig nit ñi lu nga xam ne nii defuñ ko yëguñ ko xamuñ ko kon mel na ni ñoom itamit ñu ngi yaaxa sarta yooyu noonu kon pour ñu leeral daal ne I am Madi te dëkk bi yëpp dañu war a taxaw ne gis ne ñoom ñooy Madi ne jeex na fi pour ñu nangu mukk kenn nit wala ay nit ñuy tuutal toroxal wala doyadil réewi Gambien te ñun ñëpp dañu war a taxaw pour xam ne loolu amatut fi so loolu ñu naan never again dafa war a nekk lu nga xam ne nii nit ñi dañ koo dunda jërë ngeen jëf.
This is Madi here. I'm going to add my voice to the I am Madi Challenge. Madi is a human rights activist in the Gambia who was arrested and charged for false publication for speaking up his mind about realities in the Gambia. I'm going to be reading his script that led to his arrest. Okay, here we go. But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans in the Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current President Barrow regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student, Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces in the Gambia. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. So, I don't think this is okay. I don't think this is right. I stand in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh. I stand in solidarity with Pat Jomane, who also stood.
Hello everyone, I'm taking part in the Madi Challenge. Madi is a human rights defender who stands for everybody's right. Your right, my right. He shouldn't be a victim for defending the rights of others and everybody. Please drop those charges. Set Madi free. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Yusuf Abaji, and I am popularly known as Sukur Mike. I stand in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh, and I call on the state to drop all charges against him and free him. So I'm going to read exactly his script in support of him, and I quote, "But it has to stop. The taking of lives of Gambians, of Africans, in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances
of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin, unquote. I therefore urge the government to drop all charges against Madi Jobarteh, for he has not done any wrong in expressing his constitutional rights, in expressing his views, especially as a citizen of this country. Thank you very much.
Hi guys, this is Madi Challenge, but it has to stop. The taking of life of Gambians and of Africans in Gambia and in Africa around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the names of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student, Keba Seka, who was killed by the security forces. We also remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. All of this constitutes the same story like the case of George Floyd.
I am a Gambian. I am a concerned citizen. But it has to stop. The taking of the lives of Gambians, of Africans in the Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there have been no justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by the security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes for the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. I am Madi Jobarteh.
But it has to stop. The taking of the lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student, Keba Seka, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there's no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin.
Hi, this is Tukulorsi. I just wanted to take a moment. There's a challenge going around called the Madi Challenge. And the Madi Challenge is just a challenge where Gambians near and far, at home and abroad, have taken some time to show solidarity with human rights activist Madi Jobarteh, who recently was called into questioning by the Gambia Police because of words he uttered. And he said Madi, during a Black Lives Matter speech in the death of George Floyd, an African-American who was killed in Minnesota, Madi mentioned that the Haruna Jatta of Kanilai, a UTG University of the Gambia student, Keba Seka, and Usman Dabo were all suffered police brutality, and justice has not been brought to their families. And he said in that speech that it really stays in line with what happened to George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Trayvon Martin. These are all African Americans who were killed, brutally killed in America. So, if anything, I thought that was the noble thing to do, because here was Madi, a Gambian, who was showing solidarity with America, but he called attention to what is happening in his own country. So think about that, Gambians. He called attention saying that this happened in America, but in our own backyard. And that is the best thing to do. You cannot just go and promote an agenda for an outside country when your own country is suffering similar things. And I am standing here saying exactly what Madi said, which is, in the Gambia, what happened to these 3 victims has happened to other 3 Gambians. And that is why they called Madi for questioning. In the meantime, they kept on joking him around, telling him he needs to go report. To the point now they're saying they've transferred his case. But this shows the beauty of Gambians. Every time that Madi went to report, his fellow human rights activists went and stood by him and showed solidarity. They are showing the Gambia government that when they fought for democracy, they decided that there was not going to be fear no more. And guess what they're doing? They're showing Adama Barrow's government that they don't fear him and his police. And something I have said many, many times, and I'll say it again. Until President Barrow, does something to rehabilitate Gambia security forces, the same status quo would remain. Guess what? The same people that were there during Jammeh days, that did Jammeh's torturing and killing, those same police officers still are in the employ of President Adama Barrow, the president whom when he came in, many, many Gambians had hopes in. And Madi Jobarteh is one of those people who risked his life. A lot of people didn't know this, but Fatou Camara the other day said it in her video, saying that Madi is one of those people who, when she did when she would be on the radio, he was sending her stuff to the point where they resorted to email so that he wouldn't get arrested and get tortured or killed, because that is what happened during Jammeh days. And there's not a single time that I have seen an incident of police brutality or human rights violations without Madi standing up for Gambians. Therefore, I take it upon myself as a Gambian to stand in solidarity with a renowned activist like Madi, who stands up for everybody's human rights. Madi is not selective as to who he stands for. And there's something that resonated with me. I was watching this on News Review yesterday. Madi's relatives sent a warning to Adama Barrow saying, this happened to our people. And the people who did it, that president is gone. And Adama, you are trying to be president again. And if you do not stop the abuse of police, innocent Gambians by your police, because they are in your employ, you are the commander-in-chief. If you do not stop the abuse that they, incur on Gambians, you will suffer the consequences. Right now, something the world is watching. When we went to Twitter with that story, Fatou Camara said it. The folks came and asked her, what's going on? The international community has recognized some people here. And any time your government does anything that is against the fundamental human rights of Gambians, we will stand up and speak against it. Mbokki olof yi man la tukulóor si tey dama ñëw pour wax ak yéen ndigte suñ bokka suñ àndandoor ki nga xam ne fu naataange nekk si Gambia dina ci jóg mu wax si mooy Madi Jobarteh. Madi Jobarteh dafa am benn American bu ñu reyoon ku tudda George Floyd. Léegi nag Madi ak ay àndandooram ñu génn dem protest. Waaye ba Madi demee si protest bi ba ma wax affaire yi mu ne Gambia am na ñetti nit ñoo xam ne dee nañ muy Haruna Jatta Kanilai, University of the Gambia student ku tudda Keba Seka mu ne ak Ousmane Dabo tamit mu ne ñii ñëpp nit la ñoo xam ne den nañ su loxo nguur gi waaye bente nguur gu defu dara seen affaire pour am li ñoo ooyee justice mooy pour ñu doxal dëgga si seen affaire li ñu rey ñooñu mu ne li xew Amérique nii ñun si suñ boppa si suñ biir dëkka loolu mu ngi fa xew te ñun tamit mu ngeen ñaan suñ government bi pour ñu jóg ñu def ci dara loolu nekkul wax ju aay waaye Madi ba mu waxee lii rek gars yi toog ñu toggal ko ba mu ñor ñu ñëw ne waa léegi yow Madi kaay ñu laaj la Madi dem ñu ne ko bindal ne yaa wax lii mu ne leen maa bañ defuma ko maa bañ maa lanka Madi moo leen gën a am fay la ku ko gën a dëgër bopp amut léegi ba Madi di waxee loolu gars yi na ko duñ la bàyyi mu dem mu ne leen kon léegi soo la ma bàyyi mu kon da ngeen ma jàppa waaye léegi ba wax ci bare gis nañ ne social media ak place yëpp nit ñaa ngi yuuxu affaire yi Madi ñu bàyyi Madi di mu dem waaye ñu nekko di ko naan ko tey ëllëg te bés buñ ko ne mu ñëw Gambien si nga xam ne ragaluñ tey ragaluñ ëllëg ñoom activiste yu bari ñu nekk Gambia ñoo nekk di dem ak moom si place si police bii nii léegi ñu toog ñu ne keesam bi gars yi jël nañ ko ñu transfer ko because bugga nañ koo sonal waaye xamuñ nag ne Madi du ko gën a dëgër bopp amut fuñ ko yóbbu dina leen uy ji ndik te li mu def waxul dara loo xam ne ay na loo xam ne war nañ koo téye nit te gis nga soo gisee li di am benn tey Adama Barrow nguuram bi tey ñi nga xam ne ñoo nekkoon nguur Yaya Jammeh ñoo nekk si nguuri Adama Barrow benn tey ñooñu ñooy ñan maa si góor gi mbuub ki nga xam ne xale li April 10 11 yi ki nga xam ne ñu ne kooku moo si report bi Yaya Jammeh ak mbonaayam yëpp report bi mu bind mu ne góor gi mbuub si ñi nga xam ne ñoo yàq luwaa bi la si xale li April 10 11 yi nga xam ne ñeneen ñi ñu rey leen ñeneen ñi ñu nga ne leen ñu ngi toog si puus kooku benn tey Adama Barrow mu ngi ko jox place mu ngi liggéey ak moom kon léegi yow nguur goo xam ne am nga façon nit ñooñu yow Adama li mu waroon a def ba mu ñëwee nekk buur dafa waroon a jóg mu dem wecci suñ police yi ak suñ militaire yi ni nga xam ne Yaya Jammeh lim leen jàngal mu génnee ko ñoom because Yaya Jammeh li leen génne mooy jox affaire notaange soxore Gambien si dóor leen sonal leen ñooñu loolu lañ jàngal loolu lañ xam pour ñooñu wecci loolu Adama Barrow moo war a jóg mu wecci nguuram gi ne man suma nguur lii du fay am waaye Adama defut loolu nguuram gi dinañ ko continuer bon soo léegi ñu ngi wax Adama Barrow ne yow Adama tey doomi Gambien boo jooyloo am na mbokka am na ku ko bugga am na koo xam ne li Yaya Jammeh dem def buggaatut mu amaat kon Adama yow mi nga xam ne bente yaa ngi bugg a toog continuer sa nguur na nga bàyyi sa xel ndikte lu xew Gambia tey lu bon si sa loxo lañ koo teg ndikte yow yaay président Gambia mbaadi man ni kolo bin nata janne kaatu Madi Jobarteh mola mi yalon ko na keta Gambia la man toro fannati amu molti mi yalon ko akalo wolo kuoto baki Madi mo molti mi ngo min lota ku keta la Madi be wulla sa kelo ke Madi buka jibe nyimman badinte nyimman ke badinte nyimu karlet Madi momo wulta mi yalon ko ku keta la mi yalon ko manya na kela loi ya tandila ka manya na kela Madi se wula sa kela amari ntoli sita jana doron Madi tata ikafumi ye Black Lives Matter ye protest ke katu kendin dole bijang America Police atom George Floyd leti America Police le yafa so biri woketa dunia be wulta so Madi ay mol organize Gambia ye protest ke wo protest dulato anata afko yaje George Taylor nim Brianna Taylor anin George Floyd nim Brianna Taylor anin Trayvon Martin wolbe mo molte mi yalan ko mo fata fingol lom ifata America kono je andula sa ya kita nyamen abala fa warta manya nakela ako bari ntolbe banta ko la ko fale bari ntol fango fanga la nyin sate kono jang aketa janne Haruna Jata mi yalan ko abota kalen lay University of Gambia la student dole mi ka fay ke baseka ako anin Usman Dabo fana mi yalan ko anti crime unit abanta wollebul wo mol be fele hanin bi badigol man to nyaasoto ila sa yala kola muno mo pasilete bang wo man ke basite de bari Gambia Police isita ye batu fo sang adiate itata ye Madi mut yesa ikai ko nandan ko atata danko ye fanial fa ya kai ka ko tele nyi fa ko mbak man ta safela bira yo fotoron ya mutaje akoy ko yo sa ale mutali bari biri ya ko mole dia mo si ande doron ye muneke ye Madi bula ika fa ko na bi tasom e labanta mun fankela sa kai ko ila fenko fango nga sa wondi dula dolto ye wala ka Madi Jobarteh Madi Jobarteh keta mote mi yalan ko mobe yalan ko aka kele mo Gambia mobele so sa biri nyin keta Madi la ntenga mira minna kolam ko niaje nyin kuy sifal be ke kan Gambia hanin bi Adama Barrow la man sakunda police ol min yalan ko ya jabe dandi ye dalindi mol butela mol fala mol kaja fundola wo police killing on lebe Gambia hanimbi wo military killing be Gambia hanimbi biring adama nata nyanta min kelante meta nyom folale a nyanta min kela nyanta nyilum wolu karandila le kafo e ko altol ya min lornu Gambia wo wato be dictatorship la kono luwa man so alkaminke ntela man sakunda wote kela jam bari adama man woke adama basiring e be Gambia nol butiale e be Gambia nol mutala mi ngomi diamta police wol se commande yesama adama la man sakunda wala be woke kan andume min fola adama baroy wala mi nyinti ko birin Gambia nol site batata ya jiko sai nyin kuuli tolte sonna la koteke ni sita wate nyin kuoje mi ya lon ko asun kanta ko ya jamala man sakunda ka minke molla adama wo moli be sila lela la andu be bori lela ito ko lafta kala man sati koteke iko lafta president ya ba nyini lal koteke bari adama ba nyini la dalilo min kon anyanta kala to nyaale kan nim tare man Gambia nol kontane ndi fo ke silandi fo Gambia nol kasila kamira ko nite keta president oto min ya jamme kamin kanu gobe continuelal adama ila president ya ita sotol so mbiyete yamar la minna wala mu ko ila police ol ni la militaire teye karande luwa mi ya lonko e kafu mi human rights ye wokaran bar ni sita ni mi ngomin diamata ila police ol wota wi wolmuta ye kaja fu ye kuja wol kela adama wote tala Gambia nol fangola to sonna wol kotake katu dobi je nintara is ye mono ma ya bandi na batata aka fole sila wo kan hani yamfa betun silang sa alamuta andu ila man sakunda mole ila man sakunda jibe wala nana ta human rights akalor alnimbara.
Hey, good morning everybody. Assam, wherever you are, or good afternoon. So joining the I Am Madi Challenge. And basically what that is about, for those who are not familiar with the Gambian situation, Madi Jobarteh is a human rights activist who is currently being harassed by the police in the Gambia because of the opinions he shared. So effectively, the Gambia government is policing citizens' opinions. If they don't agree with it, they start harassing you. That's what Madi is going through right now, and it could be any of us. We may not always agree with Madi on his views, but that's political. But when it comes to values that are going to impact us all equally, we need to stand with him, and that's what every Gambian needs to do, to stand up and voice their condemnation against the overreach of the state, which is what is currently taking place in the Gambia. It is hypocritical that people rise up and protest in the wake of the killing of George Floyd at the hands of police in America. And such people living in a country where heavy-handedness of the state and utter disregard for black lives is a daily occurrence. If such people are sincere, then they will speak out against it in their own backyard, which is what Madi did. Gambia lived under tyranny for 22 years. And finally, in 2016, they decided to vote against that state of affairs through democratic means. One would think that the administration that would take over from that would learn a lesson or two, that people do not condone violations of their rights. But sadly, Adama Barrow, a man who is supposed to be the leader of that change, has disappointed everybody except those who are directly benefiting from him for their own selfish interests, but he has failed the country that he is supposed to govern. Adama Barrow, like the security forces, was in the midst of that tyranny, and it hit closer to home for him, or so we think, than most others. He was part of a political party whose supporters and militants were constantly harassed. Some were killed, others disappeared, women were raped in that political party, and these are people that he dealt with on a daily basis. So you would think that all those abuses were very close to home for him, and with him being at the helm, he would make sure such things do not reoccur in the country. But just like him, the security forces, the police, the army, the intelligence, they were all subject to the brutal tendencies of the tyrant that was ousted in 2016. Yeah, Jammeh used to use the police to go offload cement bags for him at his home in Kanilai, to work on his farm unpaid. spending days on the farm in the heat. No regard for them, no respect for their professionalism, no respect for their dignity. He treated them like they were his personal slaves. The same goes for the army, where he had a preferred branch called the junglers that were his assassin team, and the rest, whenever you were going anywhere, you find them on the streets begging for a ride to get to work. So you would think people who live through that, people who have been plucked one by one and killed and tortured, despite their professional ethics or their professional job ethics or whatever, you would think those people, just like Adama Barrow has experience or has first-hand knowledge of the brutality of the tyrant, you would think that with the change of administration, such people would be the ones that are leading the fight to say never again, because they've been brutalized, they've been disrespected. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Despite all that they went through, they are the same people who are perpetuating that state of affairs, or at least attempting to do so. If we can rise up and condemn the killings of George Floyd and Trayvon Martin and Breonna Taylor in America, when in our own backyard our governments are proving day and night that they have no regard for us, for our lives, for our dignity, nobody's going to take us seriously. Madi Jobarteh, together with a group of Gambians, were protesting that killing of George Floyd, following the explosion of protests around the world about Black Lives Matter. In that protest, he had a moment to reflect that despite these killings in America, in our own backyard, it is taking place. People have been killed in this country under tyranny, and nothing came out of it. And when the change happened, people like Haruna Jatta were killed, and investigations were supposed to be mounted, but still there is no outcome. Keba Seka, and a host of other people. The Faraba incident, where citizens rose up to protest against the exploitation of their environment, and they were met with guns. They were killed. Still, we didn't hear the outcome of any investigation or what the government is going to do about those lives that were lost. That is all Madi had expressed. That still now there is no outcome or no justice for those people who have been killed at the hands of the state. And for that, the police first kidnapped him and then went ahead to start harassing him by requiring that he comes to the police station every day to hear about his bail situation. That is what the Gambian state has come to. Unfortunately, so soon, just a mere 3 years after we rooted out a tyrant. That's our sad reality. Adama Barrow is at the head of that. Him and his minions. They want to bring back that state of affairs, but it seems like they have not learned a lesson that the Gambia of yesterday is not the Gambia of today. We will not give up on our country because that's all we have, and we will fight. If they are thinking that the fight to rescue the Gambia will only go on for so long and fatigue would set in, then people will just give up, then they are in for a rude awakening. That fight, Madi is at the head of that fight. Like I said, despite our political differences, he is a human rights activist. Whether you agree to what he is fighting for or not, he will stand up and call for the dignity of different groups of people. And those values that he stands for are going to impact all of us. So it is our duty, all of us, to stand up and condemn them, despite what our views or difference in views might be with him. So, free Madi Jobarteh. Stop harassing him. Let him concentrate on what he is doing. And Madi is not one that somebody would fight his battles for. I know he will appreciate all the support and solidarity, but he is not one that you can silence, not in this new Gambia, because too much has happened in the previous administration that we will not let these little infringements, these are not even little infringements, but this is how tyranny creeps in. And we know all the signs. So with him leading the fight, all that we can do, or all of us need to do, is to stand up and condemn the excesses of the state. And I hope you do too. Thank you.
Good morning, Gambians. I am standing in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh. My name is Mamadou Seka, known as Prince Seka. I am Madi. We don't need any police brutality in Gambia anymore, and we don't need any police brutality in Gambia anymore. We are tired of dictatorship in Gambia. In 22 years ago, Gambia suffer a very pain and killing in Gambia. We all see that. And we all feel that. I came out today to say to the Gambian government to free Madi. We are tired of the police brutality in Gambia. We are tired of the dictatorship in Gambia. Madi Jobarteh was fighting for police brutality years ago, and all Gambians was tired of the police brutality and the dictatorship in 22 years ago. But now, even our president now, Adama Barrow, was fighting for dictatorship and police brutality that he promised us before sitting in the throne. But now we see the same president is coming again with the same way of style. He's terroring us. He is taking people to jail without any evidence of the person do or what the person do or what the person don't do. And we are all going to stand and fight for Madi Jobarteh to come out of this prison. Because Madi Jobarteh don't do anything in Gambia. He don't say anything what make him to be in jail. And we Gambians are tired now. And I'm calling all Gambians to come out to fight against this police brutality and this, what the government is doing to us and the dictatorship. We are tired. And I know my team, all of my team will come out to fight against this because that is the only thing we used to do on Facebook. We are not for anybody here. We are not for any campaign. We are not doing for any, we are not even doing politics here. This is not about politics. This is about Gambians. This is about how to try to see our Gambians to be happy in their own country, in our own country. We Gambians are not happy. In 22 years, we have a lot of deaths. We see the death of Solo Sanden. We see the death of Keba Seka. That's my family. It's a brother to me. We see the death of Haruna. We see the death of a lot of people, what the government do to our Gambian people. Killing them, taking them to custody, closing them in mile 2. We see that. And now the same thing is happening again. The people who destroy Gambians, the people who destroy Gambian soul, the people who kill Gambians are the same people also coming again in this government, working with our president. And it's very sad to see how Gambians are suffering again. Our mothers are suffering. Our fathers are suffering. Even the people selling in the markets, they are not happy anymore. You will see police will come and beat them, taking their things in Gambia, throwing their things out. We are tired of the police brutality. We are tired of the... We are even tired because I'm very angry, I'm very disappointed, and I'm very sad to see we vote for democracy, but that democracy is not happening in Gambia. If you talk, they will arrest you. Even though you take a picture outside, they will arrest you. If you say something negative to the president, they will arrest you. And we say we vote for democracy. We say we want democracy. Where is the democracy, Mr. President? Where is the democracy, Gambian government? And where is the democracy, Gambian people? This is not about politics. We don't have any problem with the government. We don't hate this government because we all fight to see this government to sit. So this government is not our enemy. I know some of the people will stand up and say, we hate the government, we don't like the government, but this is not true. We all vote for the government. We fight for this government to stand, but the government disappoints Gambian people because they don't give any justice to Gambian people. People who killed Solo Sanden, people who killed Haruna, people who killed Keba Seka are the same people sitting now again in the parliament, in the state house, working with the government, working with the president, and that is very sad to see that because there is no justice in Gambia. And Gambian people want justice. And Gambian people are tired of the police brutality in Gambia. We are dying. We are suffering. And please, I am calling all Gambians to come out. You don't need even to sit, people to call you out. You have to come out to fight against this now, before it getting too late. If this thing, we don't do it now, what happened in 22 years is going to happen. We will see more deaths in Gambia. We will see Gambian people to run from Gambia to Senegal to look a place to live. And we don't want that anymore in our country. Let all Gambians to come out to fight against this police brutality and to fight against this terrorism, to come out to fight this, what is happening in Gambia. I'm calling all Gambians to come out. And please, we are calling Gambian government to free our brother, our father, our uncle. I am Madi, and I am Madi, and I am Madi. We all stand to fight. Free Madi. Free Madi, Gambian government. We need our brother. We need our father. We need our uncle. What I was saying in English, I will try to say it in our local language, because I think I'm an activist and I'm standing to fight freedom. I'm standing to fight Gambians to have peace. What I was saying in English, I will say it in our local language, like my followers who don't speak English can hear what I was saying. Okay, Assalamu alaikum, mbadin Gambian call. Mbeya jila mumbe tama kan Gambia kono. Mbeya jila mumbe ke kan Gambia kono. Mfama ankutuma Madi Jobarteh ya mutala ya sorong. Bili ya sorong ya solon dalilo munkang walang dalilo ay kumakongol mumfo about police brutality, about dictatorship mumbe tama kan Gambia kono. Anum beya jila ko bili adama balolo ta fobi mumbe tama kan Gambia kono. Ntoli kilo munke 5 years ago bilintol ya Adam Barrow Sindi Gambia be Adam Barrow Sindi Madi Jobarteh kilo ka Adam Barrow si nte kilo ka ite kilo ke Adam Barrow sita mo fa la sika aya kala parlamento to mol mun ya lon ko e keba fa mol mun ya lon ko e keba seka fa mol mun ya lon ko e solo sandem fa mol mun ya lon ko ye mol Gambia dingol mun tore ye man tore ye fa Adama Barrow ni wala murunta iketa badi ngolti ani wala murunta iketa tirolti ani wala murunta ibe dokuo kan content la Gambia na kilo mun ko ndafta justice la ma soto na banko kan o mo kirngol la wulita ko tenke il fundita ko tenke kan na mol sorong yikeba ta ayen mol taybe sorong kan nka fo Gambia dingol ye ko ye finti mansula mole mul kumandi mansula yesi fanko hay man kumandi nyum bela kelolati pul na finti na kele yem fama fintindi yem fama bondi amam femfenke mumbati na leba sorona amam femfenke mumbati na leba mutala iba bondi la ala wululal bala ala musol bala ala family bala ba kala iba sorona mbe Gambianol be kumandi kan ye finti na kafunyo kan na nyin nam fama makoy nam baring makoy nam kuto mama makoy anu nang na Gambianol be makoy because nim man nyin ke sign abe tambela na tambita bulula ite betaraji wala fa betaraji wala kuto ma betaraji wala fang itiro betaraji so jani wo bebe futalaji na finti na nyin kale na demokrasi mun vote na kala isi na banko kan na kairo mun vote na kala isi na banko kan nyman sekunda imantara na banko da dakan nyman sekunda be inatala ko tenki kamol la banko tora ka Gambia dungol tora nyman ke politique kuti ntamantala politique la nalon na nak ntol Gambianol nga kiyales bakale because ikajele yewande dungo mutaya sorong iko atelaki na dey tanong nyinta sila ji Gambia ntol man nyinta kan dey because nasati na banko be batala kono ntol niaje ntol diaspora nkol be fintila Mbekelela because na munji jang laftale waytale Gambia. Na kero munji jang laftale nimpaleta na murun na sateto because na fem do ko jang ka samba Gambia le. So ntol man Gambia kong. Ntol man lafaka Gambia tey. Ntol man lafaka Gambia dunde mantoro kono. Ntol ko Gambia la kero le kele. So laftale atol Gambia no munu bijay. Ale ntol fana makoy ale mol dema. Ale finti. Ale Madi makoy. Ale a finti ni nying kaso kono. Ntol Gambia man nyindi saf. Ntol Gambia no man nyindi saf. Na jele 22 years mun bata na muntaki. Na jele Gambia dungol burita from Gambia to Senegal. Na jele Gambia dungol ye munul fa ye dinko sin ye sare ye motol Burundi je tambete tata na beji janne. Mbe a jele ko mumbe tama kan TRC ko. Mbe a mwele TRC mkolka mumfo. Konte Gambia nyamman ka kumu yalon ko wuli ya kumolong. Nyamman ka kumu yalon ko satar kumolong. Nyumu kumu yalon ko asotota. Andun tolye mun kala kabin 22 years. 4 months sabata. 4 months sobota. Nanta ka wale kala sign nyamman sa kamunke. Adama baro anata le pulka mol tora. Adama baro anata le pulka mol destroy. Andun tol Gambien dungol man nanta ka songwala. Ntol ya jele bir Adama baro luta fo bi ay kodal mun sang. Na jele bir Adama baro luta bi ay mansonol mun lo. Ando amaka Banjul hospital oto. Amake Banjul lopitano to. Amake Birkama lopitano to. Amake Serekunda lopitano to. Bada aka ala sate to pul ana dungol ana la famille ke laji. Gambia dungol be torakan. Na nafulu, na kodo. Na jela bantala bankol ka kodol mun di molla. Adama baro ka wata ka atele tamu kodo ti akata aka pasal aka di ala molla. Na jele bantala bankol ka nafulol di munna Gambia dungol ye pul ya tala mol tema Adama baro ka wana nafulol leta aka ka fangotati because ntol be ya jele be Adama baro ka loka ke mansati abe nyamen mbe ya jele be Adama baro ka lo mansati abe luwase kodale kono so wo momum be luwase kodda kono wo bi wo mansongol lo soto Gambia ay mansonol soto Senegal ay mansonol soto America ita ma soto nta ma soto so alna nga wuli na nying kale anu Adama baro ntol mete kon ntol laftale ni fintata 2021 police yeke Gambia ya Gambia enjoy bari Adama baro be takan nyamin mun kata yaay jamela wotam birung le be kelete la ite takana lon tolla Gambia dingol ite kana la Gambia dingol la janni nyum mo falal be pous la Adama baro falling as soon as possible because Gambia banko ite kanalan tolla ya jamela kanata tolla bari ite kanalan tolla ni ala sonta na nafulota ye bungol be lu wala bari ni buta mbabi re busile bulu Adama baro buta dame be mudun na jeleto andon est ce que fang ibe mudun na jeto kato mil be konti bolale mul be sambala kodlale Adama baro mum bebe tamakan Gambia na lonne na fulo mun bebe dun kan Gambia banko kan pul na Gambia dungol na lonni Adama baro mol meta deedin ne because nim finte tanung isa fuko imagine iman la fala wala tane ba kerala but Adama baro mol lafti la bakile niaje mol ko fintin ka inke won pul ye mo falal bondila ila state house oto Adama baro mol lafti la mol mi ko bari niata wo nyama dum wassalam Nakumote jamfala. Medoko delalito kabling last week I'm working. I don't have time because you people know if this things is going on in Gambia, I am one of the first person to come out to fight against this police brutality. I am the one person who I am also part of the people who used to come and fight against dictatorship. So when this thing happened, you don't see me. You people have to know that I am very busy at work. Because I'm working since last Sunday to Monday. Tomorrow is going to be my last day and I will have 1 day free and continue again. I'm very busy. That's why you people don't see me to talk about this police brutality and what is happening to Madi. So I'm calling all Gambians to come out to support Madi, to join the team, I am Madi, to say it on their post. If you cannot post it, if you cannot make a video, you can write it on your wall. And I'm calling all Gambians to come out in Gambia to demonstrate against this. I never say Gambians to come out to demonstrate. I am not someone who pushes people to come out to demonstrate. But this time around, I am 100% let Gambian people to come and demonstrate peacefully, to show the president they are not sleeping, to show the president the democracy we vote is that we need. The democracy we vote is that we need in Gambia. We don't need any police brutality anymore in Gambia. We don't need dictatorship anymore in Gambia. So I'm calling all Gambians to come out. I am calling all Gambians to come out. If you cannot make a video, you can post. If you cannot post, you can call your people to tell them to post. Please, I am begging all Gambians. Let us make it now. Let us end this nonsense now. Let us end this police brutality now. Let us end this dictatorship now, or it's going to be too late for us. Please, Gambians, let us love each other. Let us unite. Let us be as one family. Let us love each other. Let us be with each other. We are Gambians. We are not lots. We are very small. So I think when we come together, we can build our nation. When we come together, we can build our nation. And when we come together, our nation is going to be very nice. I love Gambia. I'm standing for Gambian people. And I will stand for Gambian people until I die. I know it's a very difficult task. If they don't catch us, our family is in threat. But I think this time around, they will fail and we will come to fight them. I know it's going to be very difficult, but we do it 22 years ago and we're going to do it now again. And I know God is in our side and God will help us and God will protect us. And I'm calling all my team to thank them, to say thank you to Fat Camara. Thank you to Kurulsi. Thank you, Aji Luis. Thank you, Saru, Alunsar. Thank you, all the people make video for I Am Madi. I am thanking all of you people. Some of the people, I cannot say their names because I don't know their names. But I'm thanking everybody come out to post, to make a video, to write against Madi. I am thanking all of you people, and let us push each other. Let us just not give up in this thing. Let us all come together and fight this thing, this police brutality. Let us all come together and fight this dictatorship. And when we come together, we're going to win these people. When we come together, we're going to destroy them. Because these people are devils. They want to destroy us. And before they destroy us, we have to first destroy them. And we're going to do that, inshallah. And God is with us. I'm praying and I'm telling all our mothers and our fathers to pray for us. Because this is going to be a very difficult fight again. And we will come out again. And it's high time for we all to come out to fight this thing. This police brutality, this dictatorship. We will not accept it in Gambia. And enough is enough. And it's going to be enough as soon as possible. Inshallah. Bye-bye. Wassalam. Nuyendo jama.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Inna alhamdulillahi wa na'maduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa na'udhu billahi min sururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlilillahu falan tajida lahu sadida. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisanihi wa yafqahu qawlihi. Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. I greet you all. I have also come to take up the challenge, I Am Madi Challenge. And I believe it is duty of all Gambians, irrespective of party affiliations, those who believe in the rule of law, truth, and equality before the law for all citizens of the Gambia to come out and join Madi Jobarteh, irrespective of your views of Madi as a person, but for what Madi stands for. We all know that all that Madi said that led to him being invited for questioning at the police station was actually nothing that warrants even for him to be questioned, because Madi was basically speaking for all of us. Every genuine Gambian, be it in uniform, be it in the political arena, or anyway, Madi speaks for all of us. Police brutality needs to be wiped out of the surface of the Gambia. Gambia had suffered a lot under police brutality. And if Gambians and all other humans around the world could join to express their disgust at the way and manner George Floyd was murdered in the United States of America, thousands and thousands of miles away from the source of the Gambia, Madi's echo is something that needs real awakening. Those same kind of things happen in the Gambia. We all watch the TRRC, where people would come and confess to hideous human brutalities meted out on their fellow defenseless human beings, people of the same country, the same fight, the same language, the same religion. Whoever is calling me, please, I am live on Facebook. I can't pick calls now. Yeah, so having said that, I felt very, very, very sad that after we fought, we spoke, we screamed, we squealed for 22 years to fight against such a system, and we all said never again. That is the slogan of the TRRC, and I will expect all members of the TRRC to join us to denounce the actions of the Inspector General of Police and his officials, especially the anti-crime unit. Fellow Gambians, let's put politics aside. For instance, let's ask ourselves, what was Madi's crime? Because all that Madi said are true. Keba Seka, late a university student, was brutally tortured. As a result, we lost him. Where is the justice? If the police are still investigating, so be it. They can investigate for all long they care. But what Madi said, we have not yet seen any justice being served. Haruna Jatta, a native of Fonyi Kanela. However you might disagree with Haruna's views, Haruna is a human being. He was brutally killed, shot by a bullet, and up till today, we have not seen any justice being served. And what Madi said in that light also is true. Usman Dabo, invited, detained, allegedly tortured by the anti-crime unit. He died. And up till today, except for those who were taken before a court of law accused of burning down the house of the anti-crime boss. But no one has been brought before a court or before a judge accused of the death of Usman Dabo. So Madi is basically echoing our silent views. So if Madi, because of that, was called into questioning, the entire Gambian people were questioned by the police. And if you don't speak today, you may not have the chance to speak again. Because if we allow Madi Jobarteh to be dragged time wasted from one station, from one courtroom to another, until he is silenced. Fellow Gambians, all of us would be silenced one by one. And we should not let that happen at all. Gambia has gone beyond that period now. No one should allow your freedom of expression be trampled upon. That's your God-given right. We are all fundamentally born free. Because we are a society, that's why we make laws that bound people to abide to certain rules and regulations. But to curtail freedom of speech is to enslave humanity. My fellow Gambians, let us all come out. I challenge all of you. I'm not going to name names. Fatou Camara did name names, but I am not going to name any name. I challenge every Gambian from all spectrums of our civilized society to come out, make at least 2, 3, 5 minutes video to say, you are Madi Jobarteh. My brothers and sisters, we have seen confessed people, officials in our uniform, that confessed to committing crimes. And yet, they are still in uniform. Nothing happened to them. For instance, let us listen to the anti-crime boss, Gorgimbo. Listen to this one.
It's a lie. If you say it's a lie, it's a lie. No, not that I say so. It's because it is a lie. Counsel, if you may allow me. Do you agree it is a lie? Okay, it's a lie. Thank you very much. Statement to the Commission of Inquiry, didn't you? I do. It's a false story. So you have lied twice about this matter, didn't you? I can confirm lying once. And you lied to our investigators. I did not lie to them. I make an omission of my statement. What is the omission? That I was jumping over the fence when somebody got one of my legs. But that was a lie. Wasn't it a lie? It was an omission because it is nearly 20 years back. I cannot remember so many things now. Okay, let's dissect this. Okay, omission means something that you leave out. You agree? Yes. But this is something you put in. So that cannot be an omission. It's like I put the cart before the horse. No.
Definitely, they were from Africa.
You lied, didn't you? Okay, sir. You agree you lied? Yes, sir. So you lied twice? Yes, sir.
Can you listen to this? This is the chief of anti-crime unit. A senior official for that matter, fellow Gambians, admitting nationally that he had lied twice about brutalizing our fellow Gambians. And even when he was asked by the commissioners, he said when he went to the previous commission of inquiry during the dictatorship, he didn't swear to the Quran because he knew he was going to lie at that time. So it means this man does not even value our oath of office. He believes you can go there and lie as much as you want and get away with it. When is Gambia going to be a nation of never again, fellow Gambians? When are we going to beat our chest and say, I am proud of being Gambian? Too much hypocrisy is in our system. And fellow Gambians, unless we all stand behind Madi Jobarteh in this fight to preserve our integrity as citizens of our nation, we are going to be heading for doom. Trust me on this. Because I cannot even sit down and fathom why in this modern age, in this time, that our government would sit idly by and watch all these crimes being committed in their name. A government that we proudly instituted, fought for, until a lot of lives were lost in the process. People fled to neighboring countries. Families suffered. It is a big shame. It's a national shame for Madi Jobarteh to be even standing behind a police counter, much more in a cell or anywhere closer to that, for what he said. And I am urging the Inspector General of Police, don't shame our that very important institution by dragging Madi on this matter. Madi Jobarteh is speaking for us. He speaks for me. If Madi is there being questioned, know that I am being questioned. I agree with Madi 1 billion%. You know, percent is 100. 1 billion%. Police brutality in the Gambia must stop, and it has not stopped. Because we all saw it at the Faraba incident, where journalists were beaten on their heads and cracked. Their heads were cracked. We saw it publicly. And what the police told that journalist was, you are the ones that lie. You are the ones that go about lying. Instead of police being remorseful for all the crimes that they've been committing in the past regime, they are still bowing those grudges inside them. Can you imagine? We thought they would be remorseful. But because they know the system that we thought we've wiped out, they are smiling in their brains that the same system is surfacing again, unfortunately. And we have to be very careful as a nation. The Gambia is not an island, and the world is watching. We would not relent until police brutality is wiped on the surface of the Gambia. You cannot defeat all of us. There are million Madis. There are millions of Madi Jobartehs. You try to silence one voice, million voices would come after you. On that note, I am Madi Jobarteh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu.
Fine. I also want to take part in this challenge. I am Madi, and hello, I hope you're doing fine. I want to take part in this challenge that I am Madi because I believe his constitutional rights has been violated by the very people who should protect it. So therefore, I'm also adding my voice to this challenge by saying the exact words of Madi. So I read, the taking of the lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kanilai, who was shot. Remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by the security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story like the case of George Floyd, the case of Breonna Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. Until then, let's correct the wrong. Thank you.
Yo, assalamu alaikum to all of you. I'm here to accept the challenge. I'm with Madi Challenge, currently trending on social media. I think without much ado, we all know what happened in the last few days in regards to Madi Jobarteh. What happened in the last few days shocked most of us, because if anyone told us 3 years ago that we will be back down this slippery slope of arbitrary arrest, most of us would answer no. Certainly, we would answer no. When the change happened in 2016, we were very euphoric. We celebrated the change around the world with the hope that we have turned our backs towards arbitrary arrest, torture, or all the negativity that comes along with dictatorship. Unfortunately, 3.5 years, 3 years, 6 months down the line, we have found ourselves back in that dark hole. So I'm here to purposely show solidarity with my brother, my comrade, Madi Jobarteh. Most of us, sometimes I don't agree with Madi. We have our disagreements, but no matter what, you can't take one thing away from Madi Jobarteh. He is a human rights activist with a difference. His record is clean in terms of standing for humanity, in terms of standing for his country, and his love for country is unquestionable. So this video is going to be short because I was going to record a video, but I just said, okay, let me just do a live. I wanted to do this on Bantaba, but obviously Fatih Kamara was on my back, said, no, do it on your wall. And I want to commend Tukulorsi and everybody else, Adi Louis, so Musa Jeng, and a couple of people who actually, I think, Dr. Ismail Sise, and those that will be doing it later. I think we all need to step up to this challenge, stand in full solidarity. And I want to thank the Civic Society Group, the head of Tango, John Jai. Yesterday they did a brilliant job with that press conference, standing in full solidarity. The Gambia Press Union, the president and everybody else. I think Gambians, we should not rest on our laurels, and we shouldn't be complacent to say that, oh, okay, we've got democracy, and that is it. We are at a crossroad as a nation. We have a president who is clearly incompetent and doesn't know what to do, but he is hell-bent on clinging onto power because of the privileges that comes up with the office of the president. And he has his cronies, just like Jammeh had his cronies. And then they would do everything to cling onto power. So we can't afford to be complacent and say, no, come 2021, Barrow would go. We should do everything within the democratic means to make sure we bring back sanity, and maybe we'll be lucky this time with a meaningful change. But anyway, let me just read the script that I was asked to read. I think Madi's trouble came when he gave that interview to the members of the media following the Black Lives Matter protest in front of the American Embassy in the Gambia, where he referenced to things happening in our own backyard. The death of Haruna Jatta, Keba Seka, and Usman Dabo, where he said, well, the police brutality is evident in our own backyard. So in as much as we want to fight for what happened to George Floyd, we should look, charity begins at home. So we should look at ourselves and see whether we are not experiencing the same thing ourselves. And I think that was very factual. Nobody indisputable. So the police have no reason to call Madi Jobarteh for questioning. What Madi said was 100% true, indisputable. The government can't debunk that. The police can't debunk that. So it's pure cowardice to go and call and invite Madi Jobarteh for questioning, for merely stating his opinion in line with Section 25(1) of our Constitution, 1997 Constitution, which guarantees freedom of speech. Well, if they are to arrest, if they would charge Madi, I think they should charge all of us reading the statement, because I'm going to repeat exactly what Madi Jobarteh said. And I think every Gambian should repeat exactly the same words of Madi, so that Adama Barrow, the IGP, can invite all of us for questioning. Because if you invite Madi, you should invite every other Gambian that read this statement. The police are out to embarrass themselves. The government will embarrass themselves in the courts, because there is no way they would win this. And I'm sure our judicial system is independent, and I'm very, very positive that they will throw this case out of court. But Gambians, let's stand united. Let's forget about partisanship. It's time for us to look at the nation's interest. Touch one, touch all. Today, it's Madi. Yesterday, it was Dr. Ismaila Ceesay. It was Mama Kande. Even Fabakary Tombong Jatta was called for questioning. Who would be next? Who would be next? It can be me, you, Tukulorsi, Fatou Kamara, Bankamane, Pata PJ, anybody else, Natamas, the list goes on. It can be Sisla. So we should come together like we did in 2016 as a nation to tell Adama Barrow that when we fought for that change, where he was pretty much anonymous, nobody knew where Adama Barrow was, when Gambians were vigorously fighting to liberate our nation, he happened to be the biggest winner, because he became the president in the post-dictatorship. Unfortunately, he has disappointed majority of Gambians who love the country at heart, not those who are looking for personal gains. Those of us who are looking at the nation's interests are hugely disappointed. And this is why the campaigns to make sure that we rescue our country from the claws of dictatorship will continue. Dictatorship is not just killing somebody or torturing somebody. It starts with abrogating rights of citizens. The constitutional provision that guarantees our free speech should not be tampered with. Madi Jobarteh has every right. If the police, like most people said, if the police disagree with Madi, they have their PRO who could come out and make a counter statement. This is the most rational thing. But before I read the statement, the most disappointing thing is, in this government, we have seen ministers who were in the struggle, who fought against the same things, now remotely quiet about the wrongdoings of this government just to preserve their positions. This is the most disappointing part of it all. But this is us. That's why, before you want to test the genuinity of somebody, the genuineness of someone rather, give him or her a privileged position, a position of power. That's the time you will determine whether the person is true to his or her words. Gambians, let's wake up to reality. We can't just underrate and trivialize some of these issues and say, well, it's Madi Jobarteh, that's it, we move on with our lives. That's why it's comforting to hear the head of the civic society group saying their options are widely open. They will start with dialogue, engaging the government, and if it comes to the crunch, they will take to the streets. This was comforting to hear from John Jai yesterday. We can't continue talking. We have to flex our muscles at some point. Yes, we want peace and tranquility in the Gambia, and nobody is advocating for any unlawful means in the Gambia because we are law-abiding citizens. We love our country. Nobody wants to plunge Gambia into chaos. But at the same time, we can't rest on our laurels and watch Adama Barrow and his cronies systematically destroy our nation. But all this is because we don't have system change in terms of security sector reform. Meaningful SSR hasn't happened in that country because we've got bad eggs who enable Jammeh still in charge of the system. And unless we change it, there are a lot of good men and women in the Gambia Police Force. Yes, not all the police men and women are bad people. There are decent ones among them. But unfortunately, those at the helm of affairs who are firing the shots and taking order from the top, meaning order from State House. Whenever you hear order from the top, is from State House. It's only in Gambia. I live in the UK. I don't hear the police say order from the top. And I don't think it's sent in any advanced nation. It's only you hear this nonsensical utterance from members of the Gambia Police Force saying order from the top since Jammeh days. And enough is enough. The police got to be independent. But like Mamadou Sabali said, I think on Jiski so, the bigger problem that we have is we have a police IGP whose contract has expired. He shouldn't be there. So the only way for him to protect his position and continuation of maintaining the position is to be loyal 100% to the man at the helm of affairs, as Adama Barrow. If Adama Barrow says jump, he would just say how high, sir. So now let me read the script from Madi's statement. The taking of the lives of Gambians, of Africans in the Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country itself many instances of black lives being taken by the state under the former regime and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jatta, for example, in Kalilai, who was shot. We remember the case of the UTG student Keba Seka, who was killed by the security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of this constitutes the same story like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Bryda Taylor, or the case of Trayvon Martin. This is a statement I'm reading in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh. Let's also solidarity with Madi, because we're calling on the Gambia government to immediately drop all charges against Madi Jobarteh. We are asking them to drop it not because we fear that Madi would be sentenced, because any rational human being would know that the state is going to embarrass itself when they take this matter to court. But another thing is, this is a litmus test for the new Attorney General and the Minister of Justice, Dawda A. Jallow. He assumed office a couple of days ago, on July 1st. And now we are entangled with an arbitrary arrest or kidnapping of one of the prominent human rights activists in the country, who is globally recognized for the good work he's done for our country and the good work he continues to do for our country in the name of Madi Jobarteh. Now with Dawda Jallow, having assumed this office after Barton Biro gave his back to us to seek in pursuit of a highly paid UN job, when our justice system is all in a big mess. We are in the middle of the transitional transitional program, while Bah has left. So Bah, his Jallow has taken over. So this is a big test for the new AG. It's from here that we would know whether he's going to be here for our nation or not. He has just assumed office, and Mr. Jallow, to preserve your legacy, you should advise your boss, Adama Barrow, to drop this erroneous charges against Madi Jobarteh, because there is no case to answer. He hasn't actually violated the laws of the Gambia. He merely exercised his opinion as a citizen of the Gambia that any of us could do. And I thank the people who brought this challenge up. let's continue the advocacy. Let's continue to speak up. And let us all repeat exactly the same words of Madi Jobarteh. Let's see whether the police will invite all of us for questioning. Those in the Gambia and those of us who plan to go to the country. We will still come to the country. You have the record of this video. If you want to call me for questioning, please do so. But I have just repeated, yes, Madi Jobarteh is right. Haruna Jatta died. There has not been any inquest. We don't know. Keba Seka's case is going to court. We don't know. It is being delayed. Justice is being delayed. Justice hasn't happened. Certainly Usman Dabo, who died in the hands of the anti-crime unit. But look at this. The man at the head of the anti-crime unit has been promoted. By who? By IGP Mahmoud Job. We all saw at the TRRC when the head of the anti-crime unit, Golden Boob, lied at the TRRC and even confessed that he lied. But he's walking scot-free. This is a nation where the junglers are walking scot-free. Under the Batambiri took that unilateral decision. The only country in the whole world, I've never heard of any country where confessed killers are what. And the other day I listened to Imam Babali. Sorry, Oje Jallow. And I'm going to expand this on Bantaba tonight. Because yes, we should not confuse our country. What Oje Jallow said during that reconciliation meeting, which it was noble to see Gambians apologize to one another, reunite. We want all of us to be together. But there's one thing that he said. He spoke of J.J. Rawlings, that he killed a lot of people, and the Ghanaians are able to reconcile with him. That's a fact. What Oje said is true. But the missing link from Oje's account is this. In Ghana, the Ghanaians did not have their security apparatus headed by the enablers, the people who work with Rawlings. And I think Oje should be adding that to his statement. Because if you are saying that we should reconcile, the misstep that his government took is to keep those who killed our people, who aided and abetted dictatorship, in positions of authority. Cabinet ministers, none of Rawlings' cabinet ministers were allowed to continue under the new dispensation. There was a clean bill of sale. Fresh start, just like the new Malayan president is doing. He has fired the IGP. He has fired a lot of the ministers. Change has to be a change. So when Oje Jallow said, yes, the Ghanaians reconcile, yes, that's true. And because they compensated Ghana for bringing back, for Rawlings for bringing back dictatorship. Ghana did not go through political umpires. For the international community to send their troops to Ghana, it was a pure family matter. So let's not confuse things. Because when you say the Ghanaians reconcile, yes, they reconcile. But did ECOWAS send troops to Ghana for Rawlings to leave power? No. Now our security is in the hand of the West African contingent. Because of Billy Grant of Yahya Jammeh. Yahya Jammeh refused to go. So ECOMIG went there. ECOWAS did not send troops to Ghana. So Ghana they sorted out their things internally. So obviously they had to forgive Rawlings. And again, they changed everything. The security apparatus, the lives of Gorgin Boob, did not continue to have a position in Ghana. And again, even in Sierra Leone people were prosecuted. So it is untrue to say that, well, they did not go after each other. In Rwanda, some people were prosecuted. So when Oje Jallow speaks, I think Oje should definitely give the true story and not just trying to, yes, reconciliation took place. And we are not saying that we should not reconcile because we are one people as citizens of the Gambia. But let us not confuse our nation by telling them, yes, Ghanaians reconcile. It didn't all happen like that. Gambia today, we have ministers who enable the system continue. We have the head of the SIS, who was part of the NIA, who knew everything that happened in the torture chambers, the Bamba thinkers of this world. And he lied to the TRRC to say he never knew that. But these are the people who surrounded Adama Barrow. So I think Oje Jallow, I disagree with him in that direction. Whenever he has right to forgive anybody, and I want to applaud him. He even said he forgave Jammeh and he and Honorable Dabo within their own individual right. But to say that, yes, let's Gambians unite, yes, we are able to reconcile, but let's get rid of the people who actually aided and abetted, particularly within the security apparatus. That's a worry. If you see, because Madi Jobarteh is being called for questioning, because we still got bad people in the police force. The police force needs to be Mr. Manga. I think this police guy, is it Almami Manga, who is a good guy that everybody keeps hailing him. If you appoint such people to head the police and give them the free hand without interference from State House, I'm sure we will not see this nonsensical arbitrary arrest of Madi Jobarteh. But I'm not here to prolong this discussion. I'm here to show my full solidarity, and I want to applaud Fatou Camara, Tukulorsi, and all the people who initiated this very good initiative. let's continue to be each other's, to keep each other's back. Touch one Gambian, touch all. It doesn't matter of our political differences. We always have political differences, but the bigger picture is, let's look at the nation's interest. Madi Jobarteh should be walking free. And you know what? Madi has been made a hero, an international hero. He was a hero before, but this has made him to be a bigger hero. Because he will continue talking. You're going to silence Madi Jobarteh. You're going to kick Madi Jobarteh. Like Sabali says, no one can kick me. Yes, nobody can kick Madi Jobarteh. In fact, he will come out of this stronger, and he will talk more, and he will expose his government more. So this government has lost everything. They know that this is a dying government. They know that. So what they can resort to is to try to arrest people. Most of us who are speaking here maybe call for questioning whenever we land our foot in the Gambia. Is this what we fought for? Is this what the new Gambia is all about? All because of greediness and selfishness of certain people who don't know the difference between their left and right hand. They don't even know how to govern. They're all over the place. We have more important issues in that country than arresting Madi Jobarteh. Deal with the lives of the youths. Create jobs for the youth. Look at our economy. Stop closure of businesses like Jewel Brew. Look at the affairs of Gambian people. Create hope for the Gambian people. The future generation. The president should be preoccupied with this. The National Development Plan has gone into the doldrums because of the incompetence of this government and incompetence of the man at the helm of affairs. This is what they should be focusing on. Not arresting people for merely speaking or giving their right. Section 25 or 1 of the Gambian Constitution has guaranteed our freedom of speech. And no one can tamper with that. Adama Barrow is not above the law. No Gambian is above the law. The Justice Minister, you need to step up, the new AG. Free Madi Jobarteh, drop all the charges. Mr. Jallo, this is litmus test to your office. You cannot be in the office. A lot of people have said good things about you. And some of us don't want to come after you because I don't know you. It will be very unfair for me to assess you just because you got appointed by Adama Barrow. I will judge you based on your actions. We will give you time. We'll give you a couple of months to see what you will bring, whether you bring change in that. But now, this is happening, and this has actually reached globally. The world is watching. So look, the world is not now, it's not about Batambiru, it's about Mr. Jallo. You need to walk to State House, advise Adama Barrow that this should not even happen few days after you've been appointed AG. Mr. Jallo, you need to step up. Advise your we saw Batambiru, as much as I disagree with him, when certain youths were arrested, he stepped in and told the government to drop the charges. When the radio stations were closed illegally, he intervened, be it that it was late, and it shouldn't have happened. But we've got the likes of the information minister, who had the loudest mouth during the struggle, and in fact was a frequent caller to the Fatu network, now part of this government, and he is quiet, watching this government trampling on the rights of Gambian people. This is the biggest disappointment. I can't believe. It's incomprehensible. People will remain mute, quiet because of sweetness of being a cabinet minister. There's life after being a minister. There's life after being a president. So shame on this government. And again, the more videos, I did mine through a live because I thought maybe that's going to be easier and me to talk more. Some people just record videos, 2-3 minutes. Maybe that's more effective than mine. Let's have more videos. I am not good at this like Tukulorsi. Tukulorsi is good at this, making this, but I want to commend Tukulor for actually coming up with this initiative, Tukulor and Fatu Kamara. This is good. Let's continue. Assalamu alaikum. I decided to speak in English so that everybody can hear, because if I decide to speak in Mandinka, some people say, oh, I don't understand Mandinka or Wolof, so it's better to speak in the official language. So I'm here to show 100% loyal solidarity with Madi Jobarteh. His good son is an illustrious son of the Gambia, and he has participated in the liberation struggle. He has done his quota and continue to do his quota. And this is what we need. Tango, step up. Civic society group, step up. Gambia Press Union, step up. And I want to thank the media fraternity who are looking at the interests of the nation. Yesterday, I listened to a guest you saw. They said there are certain media houses who are looking after their own personal business. It's about for them is advertisements. That's more important. Look. Every human being can be selfish. We can all be selfish. I can be selfish. Bob Ture can be selfish. Musa Jame can be selfish. Sizzler can be selfish. Sometimes it's about the country. It should be about the country. It's Saturday today. I could be doing something else. I could even stop talking on Bantaba and stop all this. And I could be going to Gambia and following my things. I could stop being on WhatsApp audios. I have my little qualification. I can go and do something myself. But it's because we are doing this for future generation. But most of us is about personal interest. This is what is derailing Africa. We look at personal interest too much. If I speak against the government, I will lose my advert money. What you're going to have, you're going to have. It's already predestined. Nobody can stop it. Adama Barrow cannot stop it. The ministers cannot stop it. The media houses need to step up. It's the fourth estate. The media is the fourth estate. When wrong things are happening, the media, they need to go and do editorials. Just like Madi Jobarteh will have a program to speak against injustice. Whenever he disagrees with even UDP, he will go and speak his opinion. And this is good, because UDP needs to be criticized. We cannot say UDP, nobody can say anything against UDP. If you disagree with UDP, make a constructive criticism. This is what democracy is all about. But days of arbitrary arrest are over in Adama Barrow. Let Adama Barrow wake up to reality. If he is sleeping in State House, Gambians are not sleeping. And I want to call on the National Assembly. The executive is failing us. You guys need to step up. I made a call a couple of days ago that the defense minister should be summoned by the Select Committee on Defense and Security, because he lied to the Gambian people. Sheikh Omar Faye lied to the Gambian people. He made an interview. He was dismissed by the PPP government. He didn't say that. And in a country where people are so, the parliament should be worried about the ministers lying, they should invite Sheikh Omar Faye for questioning. The defense committee, Halifa Sallah is the vice. Mamadou Lamin Eke Sane is the chairperson of that committee. Honorable Sana Jawara is in there. The other Alaji Dabo is there. The other MPs that are there, I don't want to mention them, because those are Dogo MPs for Adama Barrow. I don't want to even mention their names. But it's team, we should not, personal interest should not override our national interest. Madi Jobarteh could have kept quiet. Madi Jobarteh could have even got a job with his government, because he's highly qualified. He's a man of integrity. But he has been speaking up. He's been challenging the ministers. He would even walk into Peter Gomez's program to challenge the ministers, to challenge the two primers, all in the name of a lawful country. So they are so unhappy with Madi Jobarteh, they said, let's invite him for this nonsensical call for questioning. Just for somebody to speak his opinion. Who is going to be next? Let's stand up to this nonsense. Let's be on each other. We will have people who would selfishly support this government, because they don't love the government. They don't love the country. They want their personal interest. For them, it's about being close to Adama Barrow or talking to the First Lady over the phone. Some of them never dreamt of having that affiliation with the First Lady. So Madi Jobarteh today should not undergo this. My blood veins is boiling up, because I'm so disgusted to see a man who sat in Germany, Adama Barrow, a man who sat in the UK, never partook in the fight against Yahya Jammeh, becoming the biggest beneficiary, now trying to, cling onto power at all cost, trying to entrench himself, trying to silence the voices of reason, trying to silence human rights activists, the people who stood for country when it mattered most. And he shamelessly hasn't changed. And this is where the National Assembly will be called to account. Most of these laws should have been amended. Yes, we know we have the Constitutional Review Commission, we have to go to referendum, but try. Torture should be criminalized. It should be in our law books of the country. All these insults that are happening right now, tribal insults, people will wake up and insult a whole ethnic group, walking free. Madi Jobarteh, a decent person like Madi Jobarteh, just a few days ago, we had a young lady, even though she apologized, insulted all the Mandinkas. Not someone for questioning, but Madi Jobarteh is someone for questioning. For speaking the truth. Yes, Haruna Jatta's dead. Nothing has been done. Keba Seka's dead. Going to court, and we don't know what's happening with that. Usman Dabo died. And they just came out and made a post-mortem report. He died of natural cause. How true is that? Particularly, you got folks like Gorgui Mbub. And now Gorgui Mbub got promoted. And you know what I'm going to close this video with? I'm going to talk to the head of the TRRC. I'm going to talk to Baba Gale Jallo. I'm going to talk to the likes of Esa Fall. Is this not ironical that you are investigating the alleged human rights violations of the Yahya Jammeh government? But today we are witnessing arbitrary arrest. The never again is being ridiculed because it has happened again. The never again slogan should not be used at the TRRC. At some point, when the Faraba Banta incident happened, Baba Gale said he was going to resign if nothing happened, which was good. And I have a lot of respect for Baba Gale Jallow. Baba Gale Jallow is a man of integrity. He is an amazing person. This is a man that I had opportunity to attend the same university in Sierra Leone. He is a man of impeccable character. I'm sure when the right time comes, he's going to resign. But now we have seen the smoking gun. We have seen the writing of the wall. SFL, Mr. Cisse, you are heading TRRC, but you are seeing this government, the president that constitutes the TRRC, now arbitrarily arresting, kidnapping. Madi Jobarteh went to the police station. The commissioner of police said, you are not under arrest, but you are not allowed to go. What do you call that? Kidnapping. You are not under arrest, but you are not allowed to go. He wanted to leave, he called the police. So what sort of government, what sort of country? This is really getting all over the top. We can't continue like this as a nation. This is so disgusting. A new Gambia? Some of us now regret it when we organized parties in Europe here, in Crawley where I did, we had a party. We had a whole night party celebrating the change. Pateba, thank you so much, Modu Jasi. Commissioner Pateba. What has Madi Jobarteh said which is not true? What has happened to the Haruna Jatta case? You said it's economic. Economic is under defense. Who was the defense minister at the time? Adama Barrow. What has he done? Nada. Nothing. So what Madi Jobarteh said? Gospel truth. We will all talk about it. Let's all talk about it. And let's see whether they will arrest all of us. This garbage, sometimes it gets into my heading. When I see people supporting Adama Barrow, I just feel sorry for them. This man has disappointed the Gambian people. And he has the audacity of seeking the second-term mandate. Who should vote for this clueless man? What has Madi Jobarteh done? When you have let people who have killed the lives of Tumani Jallow. Tumani Jallow was a man of the military. They helped burn down those voters' cards, 300,000 voters' cards. He was killed by the junglers, Oya and others, Amadou Baji and others, who are now walking scot-free in Gambia. Thanks to those people, Adama Barrow managed to win the election just by 18,000 votes. Adama, you won by 18,000 votes. You are now focusing attention, trying to please APRC, antagonizing the people who brought the change. I had my disagreements with Fatou Camara. Yes, but Fatou Camara came to Gambia and came to America and calling me, sorry. Contributed immensely to the struggle. Established an online radio, contributed. But today she's been, when she organizes Heroes Awards, your wife of Adama Barrow, started, she brought a problem because of the participation of the Sierra Leone First Lady. We saw Facebook lives of insults here. First Lady supporting those people. And this government have shamelessly telling us that the First Lady's assets should not be subject to scrutiny. How transparent is that? What is the president hiding? And this government, this useless cabinet, telling us that President Adama Barrow should be able to have the powers to dissolve our National Assembly. Hello? What planet are these people living on? Look at these cabinet ministers. That's why I said in German, their heads kaput. All of them. Their heads are just turned upside down. Where in this world you hear cabinet saying the president should have powers to dissolve the National Assembly? That will be an abrogation of the democratic values of the Gambian people. We better forget about elections then. If the president can single-handedly default the National Assembly. Look at the caliber of the people in this cabinet. All of them, it's about being a minister. It's about maintaining your positions. Gambianolu, alinga wuli, na len jog ñu defend suñu démocratie. Tay Madi Jobarteh lañ arresté. Man suma démé Gambia mën nañ ma arrest. Fatou Camara mën nañ ko arrest. Tukulor si mën nañ ko arrest. Lamdo Si can be arrested. Bamba Mas can be arrested. Anybody who is vocal here, you could be arrested because they want to silence us. Fatou Mata Danso, Natata Gambian Si can be arrested. So let's wake up. And Gambian, the youths are standing for Madi Jobarteh. That's really comforting. So who tells Adama Barrow that he has the remotest chance of winning an election when you're antagonizing the youth, you're antagonizing the activist, antagonizing the diaspora? He doesn't even acknowledge us. He says we are big-headed. We think we were the who ushered change, but we will not in 2021. This garbage got to stop, Gambia. We can't continue like this, man. So, again, let's all make videos. Let everybody try to make a short video, not as long as mine, because me, I injected other things in this. But let's stand in full solidarity with Madi Jobarteh. And these charges should be dropped by Monday. The new Attorney General, if you want to continue your office earning respect from the international community, walk into State House and tell this clueless president to drop these charges. Because the government will be embarrassed in court, just like they got embarrassed in the Yakumba Jaita case. Gambian judges will kumol katamale. Those people are level-headed, they are educated, they are not going to sentence anybody for speaking his or her opinion against the state. If anybody should be charged, like Mamadou Sawali said, it's Adama Barrow. Adama Barrow gave false publication that he was going to honor 3 years. Is that not false publication? Should Adama Barrow not be invited for questioning? Adama Barrow made a promise that he would hand over power in 3 years. The police are going to invite. We have got people who should be charged. Hassan Jallo, Permanent Secretary Trade, who was the former Justice Minister made a recommendation to the police that they got ample evidence that he should be charged in court of law. Just because his wife is a supporter of Adama Barrow? No. So why should Madi Jobarteh be questioned? This is a sort of rotten system. When Halifa Sallah said we didn't have system change, some of us jumped on his throat. Yes, but he was right. Let's be honest. We thought at that time it was an unfair comment, but now he's been vindicated. We don't have system change in Gambia. We need to bring it again. This nonsense got to stop. Allah baraka bakem badi won. Mbokay dama don wax rek support with Madi Jobarteh. Xam nga man suma wax do they good. When I start talking I go on and on. This was supposed to be a solidarity video. But I'm not good at it like Tugul Orsi and Fatu Kamara and others who will just 2-3 minutes video. Man, suma boss, because I'm used to talking on a platform. So when I start talking, I go on and on and on. So this was going to be a solidarity video with Sunni brother Bobah Madi Jobarteh. Madi Jobarteh, do they jubo ak ñun guy UDP? Alright? But suñu wax dëgga Madi Jobarteh dombu rew bu baax la. Mom Suman, Madi Jobarteh mo gëna bëgg Gambia than most of the Adama Barrow ak minister Sambi. Because Adama Barrow ministers ñom seen interest lañ gis, seen poste lañ gis. Poste bi mo leen dee yóbbuwaale. Place bi mo leen dee yóbbuwaale. Ñu am ay cabinet minister si nguur yi ñoo xam ne tey ñu ngi noppi. We are starting witness arbitrary arrest. People have been killed in that country, nothing. The TRRC leadership, then you are a horse and bopper. Because ngana investigate you born, then you born kumase, then you should resign. Wahuma ngeen resign legide. But li su continue. Mi fi ne ñoo la ci YPR IGP Mamour Diop contract am bi jeexna. Waaye dafa dogo pour Adama Barrow téye ko fa because gomuti Yàlla. Ñi yeb gomuñu Yàlla. Ministre si gomuñu Yàlla. Ministre si toog ne parlement président bi dafa war am doole pour dissolve ban façon la ñii looloo tax ma ne si jaamane ñii seen boppa yëpp dafa kaput i kungol bele tiñaata ñi cabinet ministre sol i tol belom from head to toe i kungol bele dunta ñoo kono place lay kungol dundi ñoo kono. How can you be in this struggle? Like tay, if you appoint my good friend Musa Jeng in cabinet, and this nonsense happened, Musa Jeng quiet. Hold on. Man say we say really, so man cabinet betay. Nonsense no man. People are going to say what you were saying the days of the struggle. Bantaba, yep, you're palace around out. And people will be right. Palace la ñi di out, palace mo len gën Gambia. Allah baraka baki, I'll be on Bantaba tonight and I'll be talking about certain things. Brikama, Sirifo Sonko is gone. Media Molawolale. I'll talk about certain things as well. Allah baraka bake. So if I camera butu ni make ku afonya ngake ku ngatanga video short video record because I don't tell you jam fatale so malong. But the message is out there. I am in full solidarity with my brother. All charges need to be dropped by tomorrow. By Monday. Let's call on this government to drop these charges. Te anu mnekan kamfa this nonsensical calling sama Madi Jobarteh na report jang anu mole taye loje police ole mola time ikota ko Gambia no alinga ni Jabbate bula wayi. Ni fango buka ke jang fango. Police ol jang ni e muta ika ko be jela ni ma evidence to bule la hajo ke. Jang police ol ko woleke. But Gambia drone ka to mol yayi na 2-3 weeks itatu yayi na nonsense police station auto. Ni Jabbate waratale wayi. This garbage got to stop. Adama Barrow la ko fa on te bokala fi kafo. Mo kurumbalo Adamati. But let's all make our videos and stand in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh. Madi Jobarteh is a good son of the country. Madi Jobarteh loves the Gambia. And among kule keja, among crime le commit. Mo kurungol be banko kang, wol mamuta, Madi kata wole muta. Ni masakunda ni me oppose. Antole mo bejang, ya parede. Ni tada Gambia be tapaselale. Ibe tapaselale. But woman yana mo silan le katela banko kang. Ibe tapaselale, ha ite nyine fojang. Ndefele Madi Jobarteh men fonga repeat, alena video record. This government did not do nada. The police brutality be Gambia. Haruna Jata, Keba Seka, Usman said, Alena video said, Nimfra the Gambia, Alem for questioning. Ali invite. Because Madia Memfo, Ntole Benga for Najibe for mobile commandela. Ni ngur gide nyaka faida torop way. Musuma is a very childish government. Yaya Jame Ngurambi some more tunnel in. Hanga Yaya Jame. The only thing problem is more rape ak torture bi. So Yaya Jame do futon lolu. Wallahi do mona compare Nguram ak Ngurgi. Well, mom tamit hamga, mom monyu isi li yep. Suru Yaya Jammeh will not have the likes of Adama Barrow because Sutiye would lawyer Dabo, executive, UDP, ki can moy select Adama Barrow to be UDP flag bearer. Yaya Jammeh monyu take li yep. So what linga what lenen. Because mo different. So there are good UDP members ñu nekk ci diaspora because of the constitutional provision of dual nationality. They couldn't have contested. The likes of Karamba Ture could have been good candidates, like Lawyer Dabo said. So I'm a dual nationality. You cannot contest in Gambia under the 1997 constitution. UDP my party bohamne the most new janga yep mu bari ci UDP lañ nekk but ñeneen ñi dañ am dual nationality. So under the existing constitution they cannot. But it was a big mistake sa UDP tana why luwara hewla why ki jamfa katla ki or katla. Adama dafa bon man munuma understand Adama ngay ku oppose democracy neexut lolo ta when people come to Bantaba some people will criticize us some of the fans will say block li man no I'm not blocking nobody fani passé Pa Modou Boja made a program bu Talib di invite ñom ki nakolatula the former APRC somebody called me man Pa Modou Boja I'm not right to criticize UDP because this is where we'll be tested. If UDP, we don't want to be criticized, then so UDP them in government, we will start acting like dictators. And even Lawyer Dabo confirmed that we should be criticized. You may not agree with the criticism, but sometimes criticisms have to be made. And I'm sure Talib Bensouda would even like to be criticized because he's a Democrat. We all learn from criticism. Madi Jobarteh waxu dara nga ko tamambalo si police station electami dina dem uyu so nit yi dem bay sen liggéey ñom taxaw fofu nonu the country is losing productivity. Though the times that we're going to be spent there, those people could be in their offices adding value to the national discourse. Well, leave nonsense with Adama Barrow la. Ñun nañ lañ check suñ boppa. So put somebody ko xamne mënuta rañale left and right nga ne koku mu jité réew. Ñun ñoo lor suñ boppa. Ko xamne mënuta read speech, mere speech so ko dé bu ko dé mëna read. Koku naka la mo mëna read gité réew. So waxe ñu ne wa janga is not important. Wow, anglais is not important. Kon bul yobbu sa doom yi ñu dem jang anglais. Ni momo ko angale kama important idi ngo bondi karambu ngoto yeta dundi school ta kam mandi ka kam karanda men ani suru aka woni fula kam because English lon to official language ti whether we like it or not nkan na kodol le famo bon kan dingol karandi ni tuwab kam na ni rap kam ika kodo bondi ko men to wo important mo kana trivialize de yes amanke na first language but it's the official language na cabinet people ka safeni English lela cabinet people ka safeni mandi ka kam wala de abaka karen savera wala so nkana doyandi moka ma ngala ka manken official language bari nyanda nyato ngol so la mel kan naik safiro read adama ko cabinet people so from understand adama boro ko cabinet people understand I'm not joking there are some of the technical terms nyaade adama boro la ta understand wolo nga video jang e ko jumale bala birthday celebrate kan nga first lady jele e ko malo jumalom ilani NPP group olom so Gambians kunu Pa Modou Boja e mole samanan ala membe kering ndaysan couranto looking for funds, pro ICC and others, say Twitter and others, GoFundMe, and everything. Gambia doing GoFundMe. We have this failed government, healthcare system is in a mess. Well, I saw this lady in Sally, Mendiam to be someone that video, okay, very good. The health system is in a mess. Gambia diaspora, we have to step up. GoFundMe all Seattle every time. ICC GoFundMe, like, Adama Barrow nyanta focus la wala kan jani kata Madi Jobarteh arrest. Healthcare system is in a mess. Okay, mbali wolu me diamo be jamfala because yalon te ali londe ninga diamo stam buka stop fenge nyim platform diamo ko woleke ni ga diam platform you go on and on aji Luis yo tamé mang la gërem aji Luis Mané even though mom suma NPP la but def nga lu ba and she step up to the challenge momo se video de dano al video de da al we call for these charges, these erroneous outrageous charges to be dropped because kunta yalo ndoro kunta yae follow le wafi wati Gambia nga ku kendol so mengi ni nonsense kolu ni mansa kunda la ko fam so nante bugala fi kafu fam na men ken Gambia dum kanotinte adam baro la ko fam tata fala adam baro ala ko onte bugala fi ka jamfaji wallahi so mbe meet up la le bantaba this evening ngamane lawyer Dabo e kanyanta interview le sotola faning Fatou Rahman Kokola media platform so straight after that interview Bantaba will be live today and we'll go into a lot of issues ka kumol jaba ko se woto nyoy so ni momo se video that al video that I'll stand in solidarity with Madi Jobarteh. This is not about Madi Jobarteh. Just like Nyanjai Woli Afo Nyaming. Just like Dr. Ismaila Cisse. This is about Gambians. It's about defending our rights. We should not allow any government to trample on our rights. Sakonyi Mansakuna Mealonko, they are completely clueless. The whole press department and State House, Ami Bojan Shishoholi, Malika Menke. This government is a failed government. So now they have failed. So Mbaringatanga Madi Jobarteh will intimidate. More intimidate like that. You cannot intimidate nobody in the Gambia. We will not allow anybody to intimidate us. Because some of these people, it will be na Maimuna Sise Dabo wolu ibe ta birthday celebrate la, ibe fongol enjoy la, ibe duna motol la. Gambian hospitals are in a mess. Fuarol be bataring. Corruption is on the rise. COVID-19 Alassane Senghor alialo ne dalilo me na resignta mbabe explain ali Bantaba bi tune into Bantaba today Alassane Senghor la resignation why gatchi ngalama Alassane Senghor montan dombu rew bu bax la xamna ne somebody like Coach Passamba Diaw so ko appointed minister mom du nopi mu allow this to happen like Tofo Balikari number 1 is doing Tofo Balikari number 1 Tukulor Shikema ate palaso la ate ite but somebody like Coach near Coach can minister to be want to resign. Coach will not be served this government doing this. I have 100% hope in that. Atakela. Ning Coach be Adama Barrow la ni clueless government by now want to resign. But in do palace ole la kore iko they are all rosing kela bunjangol complete. So Gambia dingolo ni melse diam no WhatsApp audio to Aldiam, melse Facebook live can Aldiam. Let's stand in. This is not our Madi Jobarteh. In fact, maybe too late because a lot of wrong things happen. All right? But I can start somewhere. Something has to trigger it. Mesiring, Molbe Adama Barotala, take for granted. Well, I disagree with Nakeba on one thing. Bamba. I call Adama smart na Gambia busy. Man lawola. Naloneko he was trying to be sarcastic. But Adama smarter than me, Wolon Kuriati. Kuriati smarter Gambia busy. But if Fengofense Gambia Kendeandi, Adama smart wala. Because Nying, Ali Madi la Nying, is going to bring a lot of negativity internationally to this government. Even Molana Vasolaji, they have no chance. They have zero chance of winning this case. Ntemange George, mange loyalty. But Hania willing to see Nola. George Jumalema Madi Jobarteh sentence la for speaking his opinion. Nganao George of Ananjibi. Ban George Moy them sentence Madi Jobarteh pour please Ngurgi. So this case will go to court. Nada will not happen. Even Mola time waste, even Madi la time waste la. Nonsense back like Ale Kumba Jete la case lu janalma malu hanisa. You lost Kumba Jete's case. This seamless government. Alimbatunga danja wai. Allah barakabake. Thank you for watching my video. We'll catch up on Bantaba straight after Lawyer Dabola interview tonight. Allah barakabake. Let's continue the advocacy. But inshallah 2021, Gambians will liberate our country finally for good. Finally for good. Because Adama Barrow when you was continue to stay Gambia be turbana, abe turbunale. Adama be kukela ning Gambia na elected 2021 Gambians if Adama got re-elected in 2021. Thank you, Farms Job. Alright? Ni Adama re-elected. Abe kukela kotenke. Wole betamela nyinti. Yalan sa asita la karatentemo. Aman sembe follow. Because this is a coalition government. Ni manke NPP government today. Ni mu coalition government leti. Ntaro Adama be siri wale kam. GDF Mamadou Kouroubali wol sifa. Wala Mamadou Kouroubali jela ay pictures all that URL silol be nyame. Thank you MB. MB wole go fon mi ka jang gambe din keno le kala ñim fisiru wala tamba wallo alota janda atele ñim fen ko bari mo nga Adama Barrow support wallahi alsina malu jang 2021 nal bebe ñin diaspora janne al continue al be fania symbol momo ka fania support malo drone ke soto you continue want to enable lies okay fania le be soto la so ala baraka ba kan badi ngolu na battery phone is alerting me. I got to stop. I'll be on Bantaba tonight. Thank you Tukulorsi for tagging me onto this challenge. But yeah, until I cool see atale. Tukulorsi kakaren tag me si falto because nien tag in that I will go on and on and on and on. So nien tag challenge si fal al karinte da bondi je because ninte diamu damboga stop. Ya understand? Nde man video demanding all no de ka diamu 5 minutes. Nde mono. Nde be diamu le ko adama la ko akam fenkele. Adama la ko abukan stress de. Amanka kan stress le de. Bari ala ko le kan jahali. Adama Barrow ala ko le kan jahali. Mamira ko hadama di ngok jam fan tungutu like Adama Barrow. Thank you so much Fatou Bada Danso. Abaraka bakem bari muso. Bari muso la nyim president ala ko kan akam balo mamandi bakale nin dunta la ko to. All right. Okay, I'll be on Bantaba this evening. Alabaraka bake. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you.
Yo alinjo assalamu alaikum to natalla mfana natanna kalo madi fe nyo se anyina kalbe kon don nata wollate ngan tayle mandi ko to yi wala France akaran wala asake tuando tini do so soro to minde so la do ana do randa dami wata setente auto oto mbina wala karanaten yo nko kalo mari fe madla kuma ya min nyanta karanna ya juloto wala video to ako foka dankala kambia bankolu kambia banko kambia dingolu niela ta mennu mu mo findinti kambia jang kata findunin dunya fannalu to ayanta dannale akunga kala muta nyimbanko kan tumolula menu yalon ko mo fingolu nietata mansa kundala marokono berin tambita kata sain ta akolamma to wala misalo luto tombulu malo wala za polisolu la tinja nyimataniya nin tajirenteya min ya long tilingo anin kontibo man tamaji ako injam wala hakilo bulata haruna jatala kanilai min bunta jang wala hakilo bulata kambia jabada karandingna keba seka tanko moliye minfa njang wala hakilo bulata Usman Dabola memutata katora falasaya ako bitili manke woldodoto yunu be ka fole ko menbo ko George Floyd warang Breno Telo warang Trevor Martin wala mu na fe marila se nyosiati odo alfana saltake angle kangol ling kukote ngolla nimila bare wala mun tela fe ngodo kase aka kotenke enko foga dan kala kambia dingolu niyela ta menu ma mo findinti kambia jang kata finduni dunya fannaluto anyanta dannale ako nga kala muta nyimban ko kan tumolu la menu yalon ko mo fingolo niyetata masa kundala marokono berin tamberin kata sain ta akola maru misalo to tombulu malo wala police wala la tinja yimatania ala ila tajirente ya mi ya long tiling anin kontibo man tamajin akon jambulata haruna jatala kanilai min bunta njang wala hakilo bulata kambiya la jabada karandinna ke ba seka tanko moliye minfa akon ja wala hakilo bulata usman dabula mem mutata tatora fala saya ako bitilo te bi tilim manke woto wala tilim manke wol dodoto ako nyunu be ka fo lek ko menu boko George Floyd warang Breno Telo warang Trevor Martin wala mu kwoti bari mai mi fo Madi Jobarteh challenge mfana bol ayo kala angale kara ko I stand with Madi. The script from Madi's statement to be read on video. But it has to stop. The taking of the lives of Gambians, of Africans in Gambia, in Africa, and around the world has to stop. We have experienced in this country, in this country itself, many instances of black lives been taken by the state under the former regime, and right now under the current regime. We have instances of police brutality for which there has not been instances for which there has not been justice and accountability. We recall the name of Haruna Jara, for instance, in Kanilai, who was shot. We remember the case of UTG, University of the Gambia student Keba Sega, who was killed by security forces. We remember the case of Usman Dabo, who was detained and tortured by the anti-crime unit. Until today, there is no justice for that. So all of these constitute the same story, like the case of George Floyd, or the case of Breno Taylor, or the case of Trevor Martin. Ala baraka, al masudo kairosial, al bari masig basi nyomisika ngaltirsial.